Live from a shack on a hill in the Mossy Creek bottoms of Kings Creek, Arkansas. This is Lighting the Void live. It's 3/11, March 11th, Tuesday, 2025. It's a little bit after 9 o'clock here in the natural state, and I'm ready to do the live broadcast. As ready as I'll ever be. It's good to be with you guys again. I missed you. I miss you guys, man. Even when I'm gone. I'm the clinging type. So I'm glad that we're back here on another Tuesday. Wanted to thank everybody that has supported the show in the past 30 to 60 days. Like we wouldn't be able to do this if it wasn't for you. And if you haven't, check out the Patreon and or get a T-shirt or spread the word, whatever. But only if you like the show. Hell, if you don't like it, at least you can leave a review. Right. So what's up? Ari says, hey, I'm an alcoholic. Sorry for my past comments. Hey, man, we've all been there. I was just on Owen's show talking about some stupid crap I did too, man. Like, I get it, dude. Sometimes the alcohol lets your truth slip out, Teddy Slater, miss you too, man. What's up, Teddy Slater? That's a cool name. Wish my name was Teddy Slater. Joe Roop's all right, but Teddy Slater, that's a kind of a name that you could go far with. You could just do anything and then put by Teddy Slater under it, and it's probably going to be freaking awesome. Man, what's up with what's up? 1999 super chat from Ari. Thanks. Appreciate it. Love you, brother. Appreciate it. Hey. All right. That's only funny for about 2 seconds. So this show, if you haven't listened to the show before, I know we got some new subscribers. We get about 28 new subscribers a month. That's our average right now. We're just growing slowly but surely. And I guess some of you guys listen to it later. But the thing about listening to the show later is you're going to miss out on the live interaction, the phone calls, and all the stuff I have planned for the show, which is fine. And if you're not into that stuff, but we'd love to have you into the live show too, if you get time. But so if you're new to the show is kind of all about facing the unknown and conscious exploration. So we get pretty fringy on this broadcast sometimes. So last week we talked about consciousness and this whole quantum hologram matrix thing, looked into some studies of coma patients and sleep spindles and things like that. And sure enough, because I think it was just because we were talking about it, that it just started hitting things in my sleep, like crazy things started happening, and it gave me a sense of nostalgia. So I watched that movie again, Waking Life, and I kind of want to talk about lucid dreaming. I'm landing the plane here. I know people think I'm obsessed about the out-of-body experience, and I am. You're right. But actually, I'm obsessed with conscious exploration and love and how they kind of go together and this whole adventure of life. Because whether it's transurfing, whether it's magic, mysticism, or just general life, once you start living your life like that, you're actually living your life like a lucid dream, not in a lucid dream, but, your life becomes a lucid dream. Things get trippy, And I know we're a small group of people, but I wouldn't have it any other way, honestly, But when you lucid dream a symbol, so from my understanding of lucid dreaming is you become, the only definition of that is that you become aware in the dream, right? That's it, that you just become totally aware that you're dreaming, and then you can kind of do whatever, take over, do whatever you want. But I've been seeing symbols in my dream. So if you've ever had a lucid dream and then you see a symbol like a crow or a snake or even a light or whatever, like you have to know that means something, because it's not just some kind of random thing, because now you're lucid. So it's almost like your consciousness it's like, oh, he's lucid. Let me show him this thing. So I would like to talk about the hidden language of dreams with one thing in mind here, that yes, there are archetypes, there are symbols, Dream interpretation is a gift. Okay. So if you can actually interpret someone else's dreams, that's kind of a gift, because you're not just interpreting someone else's dreams. Like, we could read a dream book and say, oh, I know the interpretation of all that stuff. But that person and their higher self may have different symbols between them, and who they are versus what your symbols are. So it is different for everybody. The symbols in your dreams can mean different things for different people. So dream interpretation isn't actually that simple, unless you're looking at, I guess, bigger archetypes. But I'd like to crack this code. So let's try to decode them together if we can. First, so not last night, but the night before last, I had a dream that, now before I became lucid, I had a dream I was having a heart attack. And it was so freaking real that it freaked me out. So I woke up in the dream, I was angry. I was just angry. Like, I don't know why. When I fell asleep, I was perfectly happy, perfectly tired, but I was angry in this dream. And I think it was because I was talking to Coach Chris on the phone, because we're buds, and he had mentioned something about an angry character in his dream. So I think maybe that's where that came from. I don't know. But at this point in time, like, I didn't know that I was dreaming. And then my right arm just locked up, like it locked up in the dream. So it wasn't really like stabbing pain, but it was painful. Like, I could feel it in my dream, and the whole thing just felt like it was swelling up and locking up. And I was thinking to myself, damn, I'm having a heart attack. So I took off running out the shack door, and I tried to open it, and I was trying to open the door, and it wouldn't open. And that doesn't make sense, because the key's on the other side, the lock's on my side. It shouldn't lock itself. I just couldn't open the door. Then I went to the phone. I was like, okay, well, maybe I can call somebody. And they break the door down. I'm having a heart attack. That's what I was thinking in the dream. I'm having a heart attack. I'm having a heart attack. I'm dying. And it was so real. You couldn't have, like, if you would have came into my dream at that point in time and was like, hey, Joe, what are you doing? Like, I wouldn't have known that it wasn't real. I wouldn't have known. It was that real to me. And so, the door was locked, but I finally ended up kicking it open. And when I kicked it open, the whole yard just looked different, like a field just spilled out. Now, OBEs taught me that symbols talk if you listen. Not lucid dreams, but out-of-body experiences taught me that. So, and Carl Jung says in one of his quotes says, dreams are your soul's code. Lucid ones amplify it. And so, when I saw the field, this is the 10th time that I've saw this field, a snake, this is the second time I've seen this too, a pink snake, like a cobra-headed pink snake, came up to me into the yard and was just looking at me, right? And when it looked at me, I told it, I said, man, I actually started talking to the snake, right? I was like, man, I'm having a heart attack. Like, my right arm is locked up, So and I was like, this sucks. And I was talking to the snake. This sucks, bro. I'm having a heart attack. And the snake died. The color went out of the snake. I've had that dream before where the color goes out of the snake. Okay. And it was a trigger right there. I'm in a dream. I don't know why that snake showed up, but I have this funny feeling that, I don't know if you guys listened to that broadcast, but the one time I had the dream about the well with the bricks, and the thing that came out of it, and a colored like cobra came up to me. And then when I stepped on its head, the color died in the snake. The same thing happened here. But this time I felt like that when the color died into the snake, I felt like that it was me trying to tell myself, hey, you're dreaming. Does that make sense? Because I think I had told myself that was a dream. So that symbol came towards me to let me know that I was in a dream. And maybe it was because I was in a panic mode, or I really thought that I was dying or something. And when your higher self or your unconscious or whatever it is steps in, sometimes we don't like pay attention, but I knew right then and there. And it was the most amazing feeling. I was like, oh, I'm in a dream. Like, of not having a heart attack. Imagine if you could do that with those other dreams. I know you've had dreams of like where your teeth are falling out. Have you had that dream where you're like your teeth keep falling out, or you're eating food and your teeth are falling out into the food that you're eating, or it's just, and you could feel the teeth in your mouth? It's so real. And you don't know you're not dreaming, so you're freaking out. Nothing has ever stepped into those dreams for me and was like, hey, wake up, so to speak, you know. But this colored snake did. It stepped in. And I know I know the snake is a symbol for something, but I know that I just knew that it was me telling me. And for the first time, I feel like you've done it, right? And I looked into even my name, Joseph, Daniel, all that dream interpretation. Even my dad told me that they were dream seers, both Joseph and Daniel, in a sense. So the dreamer, the fool kind of thing. And so now I feel like, oh, I'm starting to really step into this gift. I mean, I always thought that I had a gift with just my voice, and that's all that God gave me, right? Or the universe gave me. But now I'm starting to realize that there's something about this dream world that I don't know. I don't know yet. I don't know yet, but I can feel it. And Ari, dropping another $19.99. Let's go, brother. Thank you. Appreciate that, man. I love you guys. Don't you better not leave, dude. Are you leaving? We love you too, man. And don't worry about it. Like every one of us will be an asshole at some point in time. I know I will be. I know I have. That's a part of me. I have the asshole integrated into me, right? But I can't explain it. And it was the night after my father had the weird experience with the cat. And something is telling me that the dream world is where it's at for me. Now, the day world, I got to be honest with you, it's easy as long as you're doing stuff. Like lately I just landed hopefully another construction job. I went and bid on another one today. Hopefully I get that one. And then I'm trying to DoorDash too. And all of that stress during the day doesn't even matter to me. It's just work. You have to do it. It's part of life. But the nighttime, when we can go on our own separate adventures, that's gold, right? That's the gold time. So anyways, I'm going off on a tangent. So that snake showed up to me. I instantly became lucid now. And I told myself, I was like, it's almost like, thank you. There was some kind of power behind it. Like, and when I thought that thought, I said, dude, snake power. I just said that in my mind, snake power, you know, and there was like water behind it as soon as I said that. And in my heart of hearts, for the first time while I was lucid dreaming, I just told myself, deep truth, I'm awake. And I was saying it, deep truth, like I was doing like a mantra. So the shack life lately has gotten my freaking dreams pretty wild, and symbols have been screaming at me lately. And I'm excited about it. It might be because I'm an Aries and it's springtime. You know, this is like right after winter, you plant the seeds, you start doing stuff. For Aries, maybe that's what it is. I know some people would say that, but we got longer time during the day before it gets dark to work and stuff. I don't know what it is, but I just feel different. And I think that dream had a trigger into it. So I wonder, now I'm wondering if that like purple snake is kind of like my, we all like to think we have special things, but I really think it's like my special symbol. And I'm wondering if any of you guys have like a special like lucid symbol, because there's lucid techniques to waking up in a dream. Okay, there's, flip the light on, or ask yourself every day, am I dreaming? Look in mirrors. I heard someone else say, pull on your fingers, do things like that. But what if you had a symbol that you could train, like when it showed up in your dream, not only was it there to like wake you up and say, hey, you're in a dream. But it was also just an acknowledgement of that your higher self is talking to you. It's like talking to that long lost friend that was like, hey, welcome back. You know, I've been trying to talk to you forever. Where'd you go? And I just got through speaking with Owen about the magician archetype. So I think when we tap into this dream world, when we begin to explore consciousness in this way, and then start studying what our own personal symbols are, and then we play with it and create tools to play with our conscious exploration, we're definitely in the magician archetype, which is like one of the 4 archetypes, so to speak. And if you want to hear more about that, you can go back into Owen's show on Blue Collar Mystics. So we talked about, you know, the king, the warrior, the magician, and the lover. But that was me kind of ranting about mature masculinity or whatever. But I get overexcited about things. I think that I've made some great discoveries sometimes. And so I do wonder, like, if anyone here has had the same thing happen to them, because I haven't heard of this. I could be wrong, but I haven't studied it either. I haven't taken a lot of time to get on the internet and look around and see if people have their own, like, lucid dream symbols that wake them up. But anyways, back to the story. As soon as I realized it, I was like, oh, I'm not having a heart attack. And the tightness in my arm was really tight, and it hurt like a son of a bitch in the dream. But as soon as I was like, oh, I'm not having a heart attack, it just went away, poof, instantly gone. And I felt like a kid. And then guess what? Here's the trippy part. I looked back down, and the dead snake skin, it kind of, when it died, it kind of flattened out, just like in the other dream. It woke back up, and it kind of stood back up and looked at me. And this thing is freaky looking, man. Like, if I saw it in real life, it would scare the hell out of me. But this thing is freaky looking. It's got like a pink scaly color to it with green eyes. And the green in it is not good looking. I don't know what color green I would call it, but it's not a pretty green. It would scare the hell. But in the dream, I felt like I was on acid, so to speak, right? You know, I was kind of giggly. And I was like, what's up, man? What do you want to tell me? And the adventure kind of took off from there. And it got kind of personal. And I don't know if I want to talk about that yet. So before I go down that road, like, do any of you guys in the chat, or you can call in too, of course, if you want, it's 501-777-5631. But do any of you guys have, what's up, Domek? Any of you guys have your own dream symbols that show up? Not in a dream and you realize later that you were dreaming. What I'm specifically talking about is symbols in a lucid dream that wake you up. I know that I read something about it in a couple of lucid dreaming books, but I don't necessarily know if it was the symbol that woke the person up. Because that's really rad if it is, because that means we could, if that's real, then that means that symbol could pretty much wake us up in any dream. Imagine that. Imagine if we could lucid dream every night. Not just get out of body. Getting out of body is cool. It's the best part. It is like the ultimate, it's like the capstone of conscious exploration. Getting out of body naturally. Yeah. But we don't always do that. And sometimes when we do these methods, we'll slip into a lucid dream, or we'll go back and forth. But what if we never had to, like, dream again? Wouldn't that be rad? And only if we wanted to. Only if we wanted to let go and say, hey, man, you know what? I just want to have a dream and not even know that I'm dreaming. Sure. But what if we could take control of that for the rest of our lives? It's the good part. Like, I'm in midlife now, so I'm thinking about how much time I got left. And if I can take total control over my dream world for the rest of my time here on Earth, that would be pretty badass, right? Purple Pencil says the sacred serpent thing has been on my study as of lately. Keep your personal unless someone is personal. Keep your person. What do you mean there? Energetic trade. I don't know what you mean there. But definitely maybe it's like the sacred serpent thing. I just don't know why it's pink. I have that right here. I'm looking at it right in my journal. Pink, question mark. Like, why is it pink? And I left that there. Second one. So tonight, I'm going to try some things to try to get it to come back, and I will let you know if, if this actually works. But I don't think lucid dreams are just trips, that we take. I think there are messages. Let's break it down. For example, you could take over like what you do in a lucid dream. You could change the atmosphere of the dream. You could change the environment. And when I talk to most people say they want to eat ice cream, or I even had a guy that I brought on the show that would create video game worlds that he would go travel in. And what a lot of lucid dreamers and people that explore consciousness in this way, void walkers, I call them. What they don't talk about is the glitches in the dream or the weird things that show up, like in the Matrix, right? They don't mention those things because maybe they're not important. Keep your personal experiences to yourself unless someone shares one with you, kind of thing. Yeah. Yellow. Does yellow show up in your dream? Well, anyways, people don't talk about the glitches too much because they seem to be non-important, but I don't think they are. So you guys remember in Robert Monroe's book when he got into those little creatures that was attaching to him? I think he was having a lucid dream. Now he says in the book that he was out of body. But a lot of the stuff in his book, when I read it, I wonder sometimes, like, maybe that's just a lucid dream because you're aware you're not asleep. But anyways, same thing happened to him. He got in a desperate situation. These little, he said that they were like little naked creatures with little pube hairs sticking out, like one or two pubes. It was really weird. It's some weird stuff. And they would latch onto him. And the more he would try to pull them off in the dream, the more they would kind of like surround themselves with him and encapsulate him. And he was an old man, I think, when he wrote this. Not too old. Maybe he was like in his 60s. I don't know. But when he documented this, and it got so crazy, kind of like the thing that happened to me with the heart attack, it got so crazy that he started screaming for help because he was afraid. Now, I understand that feeling because when I thought I was having a heart attack in the dream, I was freaking out, man. I did tell myself, stay calm. How do we solve this problem? All that kind of stuff. But on the inside, I was freaking out because I'm like, this could be it for me. This is it. This could be my last day on the earth. So one part of my brain's thinking that, and the other brain's like, what's the next step? What's the next step to solve this problem? So I had that same desperate feeling. Now, hear me out. In my lucid dream, that pink cobra showed up, that pink snake. Okay. And Robert Monroe's experience, he had a hooded figure come and help him and just peeled these like beings that were suffocating him. And in the book, he says he was on his knees, like crying and pleading for help. So he had a mysterious hooded figure come and help him with these things, peeled the beings off of him. Side note, once again, if you haven't read or listened to Robert Monroe's books, the trilogy, all the way through, you're doing yourself a conscious explorative disservice. All right. But in my opinion, but what happened there? In both situations, mine and his, there was a desperate cry or a desperate plea or a very vulnerable state. And something stepped in. Well, you find out later in Monroe's books, a little spoiler alert here, is like you find out later that Robert Monroe, the thing that helped him was his higher self. It was. It was just you couldn't see the person's face. You didn't find out till later that it was him that came and helped him. And in this case, I think it's the same thing. The purple snake was me. So what? I think we all have these symbols, is what I'm saying. Like, what would be your lucid symbol? Sometimes it's a mirror or a crow, I think. And I'd like to dig into this a little bit. PK says, maybe that's what we're supposed to do while we're here, so you know when you're dead and your heart is lighter than a feather. I think that's a metaphor for being awake in your dream. I wonder if that could be a thing, Don't know. I mean, I really don't know. But I do know that I'm excited to be back into talking to my higher self, because I used to just do it through ceremony. So, and I still do in a sense. So like if I did a ceremony, whether, you do the middle pillar, you do the banishing stuff, and let's say you want to learn a lesson about something. So you invoke some angel to learn a lesson about forgiveness or tolerance or whatever. And then something would happen in my life that would show me, like almost like a synchronicity. Here's an event. I'll manifest it for you so that you'll see it. And I would get happy. I'd be like, yeah, I'm talking to my higher self. So I'm living in a lucid dream. Thanks for listening to me. So my way of talking to my higher self, and I still do it to this day, is ceremony, meditation, those kind of things. I've never been able to have that conversation with my higher self just in the dream, even though that's what we're doing. I don't want to confuse you. How do I explain this without making it too complex? It's like a double lucidity. Okay. So when you're in dreams, whether it's a dream or lucid dream, you are actually just talking to you. That's the theory. That you're just talking to yourself, and everything that you experience is just you, really, in reality. But you're not really aware of it because you seem separate from everything, like the landscape, the symbols, everything that's in it. When you become lucid, you can take control of it, but you're still like in some kind of reality where you're separate from things. So it takes a while for you to learn that all of this stuff that I'm experiencing is me, and it's not very convenient, is what I'm saying. Because when you and I have a conversation, we just talk back and forth to each other. It's not hard. But when you have a conversation with your unconscious, I mean, it only works through symbols or synchronicities, and it doesn't speak English, So I guess what I'm saying is this is the first time that I felt like that I came in contact with my higher self without having to interpret it later. Like it happened there. It's like, oh, that's the higher me as a snake. It's here to help me. It's here to rescue me. Like Robert Monroe's guy did, it rescued him. Why did it come bail me out? And maybe you're onto something with the heart is lighter than a feather thing. I don't know. See, what I usually have to do in this case is I'll journal it. And then later I'll find out what it really meant. I'd have no idea why this happens, but it happens almost without fail every time. Like I'll have a dream and then I'll think I know what the interpretation is. I mean, I'll tell myself I know exactly what it means. And then later something will happen in my life, or I'll have another dream or whatever, and then it will reveal what that dream was actually about. And usually that happens because you're not aware of what's going on unconsciously. That's why dream journaling is so important. But I think we could do this in lucid dreams. So the next time you lucid dream, I would do this, and I'll do this with you, okay? I will ask the dream, which really you're asking yourself, like, what is my symbol? Give me a symbol so that I know that you're there. When I say you, I mean the higher me. Because I know, like, now I've double confirmed it. Now that's that freaking cobra. It's that snake thing. Maybe we could pull a tarot card or something, and maybe it'll tell us. Like, if I'm tapped into this, the tarot should tell me, right? You would think. Do a little deep dive. Symbols, birds, freedom, messengers, and out of body experiences. What does the door represent? Why was it locked? Then you really start looking at everything and picking it apart, you know, like my shack dream. I love 311. It's 311 day. I wish I had some 311 music to play. If I had time, I would have popped it in there. And I think I'm on to something too. Really do. All right. Got to take a short one here. I have to run. So we'll be right back. 3 minutes maybe tops, because it's we're not technically on the radio station, so we don't have to play that one ad, but I do need to take a short break here, okay? Be right back. Think of a symbol, man. Think of like any symbol that reoccurs in your dreams all the time. And what I'm trying to say is, what if I told you that was you trying to talk to you? Think about it, man. Hold on. All right, welcome back to Lighting the Void Radio. Man, big send your love to Coach Chris right now. He needs some positive vibes. So back on the lucid dream thing that I was talking about, this crazy shack dreams that I've been having lately. So when you look into the symbols, all right, in magic, like in old grimoires, if you read some old grimoires, they say that lucid symbols actually shift your reality. So if you see one while you're lucid, that it's a sign that your reality is going to shift. Like if you can crack out like almost like if you can crack the code of the symbol, then you could steer or manipulate your reality. But I'm not really into trying to manipulate my reality, so to speak. And I didn't get that feeling from it, right? I got the feeling that it was just like me trying to say, hey, I'm here, you know. But another symbol that I've seen, I don't know, after certain bad things that have happened in my life. So I'll give you an example. When I talk about your own symbols, and maybe I feel like I'm kind of sharing too much sometimes. That's why I stumble on this, but I think if I don't share it, then you won't know what I'm talking about. So when you look up the dream interpretation for, let's just say, a raven or a crow, right? There's a whole bunch of different things that it could mean. Lots of different things. It has different meanings. You know, some tribes say that it means someone's going to die, or some people say it's transformation or it's magic or whatever. Usually, when I see a raven in real life and in my dreams, both. And this is where we get into that whole like what's reality, what's not thing, but I'm trying to rein the ADD in. It means that I'm going through loss, a loss that's going to lead to a transformation. Usually it's an emotional loss, right? And I see them quite often. It doesn't mean what it means for other people. And it took a lot, man, a lot of dream journaling to know that, to know what that means for me. And I feel like I can interpret other people's dreams, and sometimes I want to do it. You ever feel like that? Like someone will tell you, hey man, I had this dream, and they tell you the whole dream, and immediately like you know the interpretation of the dream. And you'll tell them and they're like, yeah. Well, that's another thing. Why didn't they know that? So that's kind of shaky ground. Like I don't want to influence people in that world, because I feel like that your conversation that you have with your unconscious, your higher self, your holy guardian angel, whatever you want to call it, is a very special and sacred thing. If not other than the people you love, it's probably the most sacred thing I think that you have in your life. That thing. So I don't want to step on anybody's conversation that they're having with that. But I'm just saying, for me, it's a raven. Okay. And in my dream journal, which I hope you have one, like, if you don't, you should start. Even if you don't like writing, just use a phone or something. In your dream journal, always write down symbols. Like I make a category. What I remember, especially if it's not lucid, like if it's something that like it's fading out, I'll just start writing or talking, depending on how I feel at the time. What I remember as it fades out, and then I'll have like a symbol section, and then just start writing stuff. And usually a few months, not days, months later, I realize what that dream was about. But I think that if these old grimoires are correct and you're lucid and you see a symbol, there's something totally different going on there. Second time I saw the snake, that cobra snake. One was in a regular dream, but that dream was loud. I'll tell you about that one, okay? So you can kind of start smelling what I'm stepping in here. When I lived in Daytona Beach, I was going through a lot of emotional ups and downs. I was in a relationship that just was sending me in 9 different directions. That's another long story, but so I was losing myself at that time. I'd lost my center. I was so focused on trying to make this relationship work because I wanted it to work so bad that I had lost the center of who I was. And so one night I was sleeping, and I would usually go to bed at like midnight, 1 a.m., 2 a.m., that kind of thing. I used to like to try to stay up around the witching hour so I could get out of body. but not this night. I was emotionally exhausted, man. And my neighbor, we lived in these studio things. So sometimes when you live in those little bitty studios, you don't want to stay in there because you feel like you're in a like a prison cell. So you just sit on the porch or you go to the beach. And so they were all sitting outside. And then my neighbor, who was a buddy of mine, the only one left at night at about 3:30 in the morning. And this dream happened fast. This was the first time I saw the purple cobra. And I wasn't lucid. Okay. But I remember I was at my grandmother's house. I opened the screen door on the back porch. I looked into the backyard, the same backyard that I've seen a million times from the time I was 5 till 21, until my grandmother died. So we're in familiar territory. There's a hole in the ground. I think I've told this before, so I want to make sure that I stay congruent with what the previous dream. There was a hole in the ground and things started coming out of the hole. Okay. First thing that came out of the hole was this like skeletal Egyptian type pharaoh thing. Okay. It just pops out of the hole. Don't know what that means. Well, I do now, but I didn't then. And other symbols, let's just say other symbols started coming out of the hole. Meanwhile, I'm staring at this thing like, what the hell is this? You know, no emotion. I don't feel scared. I'm not happy. I'm whatever. There's no crazy emotion. And then this pinkish purple snake starts coming towards me. And it comes right to my feet. And it sits up and it looks at me. You know how when the cobra sits up, it flares out and it looks at me. And I stepped on it. And as soon as I stepped on it, it lost its color. And when it lost its color, I thought, okay, what is in that hole? And I looked inside that hole, and there was these like little dudes on a scaffold inside the hole. I don't know if they were people, but they were singing a song that I still don't remember to this day, but it was so freaking catchy. It's almost like I'd heard it before. And they were singing a song, and they were stacking bricks around that hole, one at a time. And if you've ever done any bricklaying, you know how to do it. And that's what they were doing. One at a time, just having a good time singing. And then a voice yelled, Joseph, take a new direction. Like it was loud. And it was loud enough to wake me up. And it freaked me out so much, I went darting out the front door. I think this was late 2022, maybe coming into 2023. I went darting out the front door of my studio at like 4 a.m. in the morning, just rubbing my head, waking up from this foggy dream, and this person that yelled at me. I don't know whose voice it was. It wasn't my voice. I don't know whose it was, but it was loud enough to wake me up. And I darted out to the front, and my neighbor's just sitting out there looking at me. He's like, damn, man, you had one of those dreams, huh? And I'm like, what do you mean? He said, you're still trying to remember it, or it's still freaking you out. And he's just laughing at me. And so I tell him what I'm telling you now. And of course, what does he do? Right. He starts trying to interpret my dream. And I'm just kind of shining him on. I'm like, yeah, maybe that's what it is. Yeah. But I wrote I wasn't lucid, but I remembered all of it. I wrote every detail of that dream down. Not too long after that, I had another dream with the pink and purple snake. And then the night before last, same thing. Now, I know for a fact now what that pink and purple snake represents. And it's what I'm trying to tell you is if you have a symbol, either I'm just discovered something for myself, but I would like maybe a little validation. Do any of you have a symbol like that? Because when I read old magic grimoires and they say, oh, if you have a lucid symbol, you could manipulate your reality with that symbol. But I don't care. I don't want to manipulate my reality. I really don't. Not in the way they're talking about in these books, but I don't know. It doesn't make a lot of sense. I mean, everything doesn't, none of it makes sense except for that purple snake. And I didn't do the lucid dream stuff to have a lucid dream. I just haven't had one in a long time. I've either had like a weird, crazy OBE experience, or I've had a dream, or nothing. Don't remember anything here lately. So what I used to do is I used to stare at clocks. Like I did all the dream yoga stuff, I even tried to fly in real life to make sure that I would fly in my dreams. I did all the practice stuff. Never in all of my years of, I would say 10 years now of conscious exploration, have I even thought about a symbol in a lucid dream and what it would mean. What are you saying there? I wish I could tell you, man. No purple snakes here. Sounds dope. Well, maybe do you dream journal purple pencils? Rodney Horn says, I had a snake dream back in 1995. Let's see. I'm going to ask the tarot what it means, because if I'm in sync, then the tarot should tell me, right? What's really happening here, Have you tried staring at a candle flame? I absolutely have, man. What's up, Rad Owl? Dude, I got to get you back on the show. If there is a dream interpreter out there, like a real dream specialist, it's Mr. Rad Owl. Are you talking about, dude, you should call in if you can. Can you call in? 501-777-5631. Man, do you mean staring at a flame before the dream, or like staring at a flame in the dream, like in a lucid dream? Look at that. I pulled the sun. I think I'm on to something, man, with lucid symbols, right? Not just dream symbols, but like a lucid symbol. I should have, like, you would definitely be the person. I don't know if you have time to call or not, even just for a few minutes, but you would definitely be the person that I would talk to about that, J.M. DeBoard. Fantastic books on dreams, man. Figured you'd show up when I was talking about dreams. Yeah, man, I hadn't talked to you in a while. I miss you, dude. I really do. I hadn't talked to you in a while. Yeah, I've been kind of going through it here in the shack again, but like the dreams are kicking off like crazy. This purple snake, purple cobra, has shown up 3 times in very relevant dreams. And I really think that snake represents, I mean, all of the dream, right? I could be wrong, represents me, just like your dreams represent you. In some form, the symbol represents something that's going on with you. But I think like this purple snake thing is some kind of trigger. Maybe. I can't wait to hear what you say about it, man. Because my intuition is saying that. It's like, no, it's a trigger to tell you that I'm here. I'm aware. Like it's hard to explain because I don't want to sound crazy. Like, I'm aware of myself on a higher level. What does the purple represent on the chakra chart? And what does the serpent in dreams mean? In some interpretation, serpents could be earthly desires, emotions. I've been a slave to my desires here lately in my life, though. So maybe you're onto something like that. Definitely pulled the sun card, though. Maybe it's just vibing with my childlike energy, but man, if I could have it my way, and I wonder if you feel the same, like, would you be able to lucid dream? Would you prefer to lucid dream the rest of your life if you had to choose? Like, all right, you're going to be able to dream the rest of your life, and then sometimes you'll remember them, sometimes you won't. Or you can take the red pill, and you'll always be aware in your dreams. I think I'd take the red pill. They're more fun. Radal says, hooking up my mic. Great. Hope it works. 919 area code. Who are we speaking with?
Yeah, man, it's Radal.
What's up, brother? JM DeBoard.
Yeah.
How you been, dude? Did you really happen to just come into the... That's another synchro, if that's true, man. You just happened to show up and I'm talking about
You
dreams.
showed up in my feed. Yep. I went on to YouTube and it was like live streaming, Joe Roop, Fringe FM. And I'm like, oh man, I haven't checked out Joe in a while. Let's go see what he's up to.
Yeah.
And I swear, man, I hit the thing and it's right as you're talking about the Purple Cobra and talking about, lucid dreams, and you haven't had a lucid dream in a while. And I'm like, okay, well, this is inviting me in, isn't it?
Yeah.
So,
yeah, man. Yeah. Dude, your like JM's books and his courses on dreams are amazing. You know what I mean, man? Like, it's hard to trust other people with your dreams because they're yours, but you explain a lot of that stuff very well. And, we used to have you on the show once a month, and I know I wanted to do that again, but I'm very grateful that you happened to slide in tonight because I'm having a dilemma here, but it's a fun one, It's definitely a fun one.
We've worked our way through a few dilemmas in past episodes. For anyone that doesn't know, I've been Joe and I have talked like this on, Fringe for, God, dude, this must be at least, 10 times or more over the years. So I only caught a bit of it. I know there's a Purple Cobra involved. So I don't want to have you go over everything again.
No, it's cool, man. It's it's like a pinkish purple cobra. And I've had a couple of dreams with it before where it just shows up and I'll step on it and the color will go out in it. Now that's happened in a couple of different dreams. One of them was a dream about a hole in the ground that stuff was coming out of and they were laying bricks in it. And another dream was just snakes in the grass, like that classic snakes in the grass dream. But one of them was that purple cobra. And when I would step on it, the color would go out. Well, the night before last, I had a dream that I was having a heart attack, dude. Like, I could feel my right arm was just hurting, and it was really tight. And I'm like, damn, I'm having a heart attack. And I was locked in the shack. I couldn't get out. I finally kicked the thing open. I wasn't lucid at this time. And when I kicked it open, there was a field. And I don't know if there's water behind the field before I saw the cobra or not, but the cobra came back through the grass, perked its head up. And there was something about that moment, and I think it's because I had dreamed it so many times before that I was like, oh, I'm dreaming. Like, this isn't real. And I instantly became lucid. The heart attack thing went away. And then what I was telling my audience earlier is like that I had this feeling that there's something about the symbol that is like my higher self trying to say, hey, I'm here, that kind of thing. Like that it represents that.
When you have a recurring symbol in a dream, it is trying to get your attention, and your process that you're going through is what we would do if we were doing a dream work session together. We would begin by using Jung's amplification method, which means looking for parallels in myth, legend, folklore, fiction, literary tradition of any kind. When you have a symbol like that keeps coming up, it is trying to get your attention. And so there's something that the unconscious mind, that where your dreams are manifesting from, is trying to accomplish through this. And part of what I do as a dream interpreter and a teacher of dream interpretation is to walk people through a backwards process. If you can kind of figure out, well, what does the dream have in mind through this? By giving me this experience of the dream, what is this part of my mind where the dream is created trying to accomplish? So if it is to make you aware of something deeper in you that is sort of emerging from the deep, snakes come up from the ground. Something with the purple color to me is highly suggestive of sort of the dawn of a deep spirituality. That mixture of color reminds me of the sky, just, that first hint of the sun at, 4:30 in the morning or whatever. And now symbols are always understood in context. And And you keep having it in these different contexts, but one of them that stood out to me was the one where you said that the snake was on the ground and you had stepped on it.
Yeah.
And even though snakes are creatures of the ground, it makes me think of the idea that there's something about yourself that you're stumbling over, that there's something about you that maybe should be used more for that crown chakra sort of purpose, the purple crown and the snake, classic symbol of the Kundalini, the raising of consciousness, the activation of the deep energies within the field of the person, within the body. To me, it's suggesting the idea that this snake really needs to be, even though it is a creature of the ground, it needs to be a place where it's not going to be a stumbling block for you, which would mean upraising or uplifting something in your life, like maybe something in your life that needs to be understood in a sacred context, as opposed to the way that you're trying to approach it from more of maybe an earthly or a rational, just something that it seems to be, the snake is coming from the sacred realm and it needs to be treated that way. And so in that dream where the one where you're describing you stepping on it, and I'm like, yeah, the bottoms of your feet, that's not where something sacred is supposed to be found,
Right. Yeah, no, the first like one I had with it
in a way.
The first one I had it with in it, JM, was like I was at my grandmother's house and a hole popped open in the ground in the backyard, and like this Egyptian skull figure popped out of it, which I interpreted it at the time as, well, that's just a symbol of transformation and the mysteries or whatever, and it's coming out of a hole in the ground. But then like a few snakes came out of the ground, but that one that came towards me, that was that purple and pink color, and my natural instinct was, oh, it's a snake, it's trying to hurt me, snake in the grass thing, whatever. So I just stepped on it, and when I stepped on it, like it just died. It ate its body, even like flattened out and looked
and it
weird,
lost its color. Yeah. See, that was the other thing. I forgot about that part. That's the other thing, because it keeps repeating. You said at least twice where the same action happens where the snake loses its color.
Right.
And like, to me, that the color of the snake is what's giving it its sort of sacred or sort of mystical context or feel to it. And so to step on it and for it to lose its color reminds me of that idea of like something that is supposed to be sacred, but it's not being treated that way. So, or something that sort of like loses its specialness. Like if you take, okay, just as an analogy, is the Virgin Mary, or is she just any old babe? Like if
sure,
you start
I get what
the
you're saying.
Virgin Mary is any old babe, then she's no longer that, So
there's all kinds of virgins out there, but there's one Virgin Mary, and it means something sacred, right? It means something, yeah.
Well, and your relationship with her is sacred. So that same kind of thinking is what goes into your relationships with your dream symbols, because they are access points or entry points for deeper aspects of yourself that are connected to the dream symbol as if on like an electric circuit. It's a connector down into the deep parts of your psyche.
Yeah.
It's where these things emerge from to begin with. That image of the snake coming up, or the first thing, the Egyptian thingy, and then the snakes come up out, and it's coming up out of the ground. Like, yeah, that is a classic sort of symbolic action of something that's emerging from the unconscious mind.
And then there was like these singing things on little scaffolds inside the hole. It looked like little, almost unrealistic little people just putting bricks inside the hole, like singing a song.
Oh, dude.
Yeah.
Yes. Carl Jung writes about that similar imagery in the Red Book. The Red Book is his chronicle of his, they call it his confrontation with the unconscious. It was basically a 20-year journey and at a midlife point where he went from being, the respected psychiatrist, Dr. Jung, to being that and the deeply mystic shaman of, the healer of the soul
Right.
Dr. Jung, which came about from his transformative process by engaging, I like that word instead of confrontation. He's engaging with the unconscious, and it's producing this imagery that's just tripped out. He draws it in, he describes it and draws it in the Red Book. And part of what he encountered were these like little gnomes and
Yeah.
underground creatures. And
That's
things
what they
like
were, bro. Yeah. And I don't even remember
Ooh.
that part in Young's thing. They were singing a song, dude. And it was like almost kind of like whistle while you work, that kind of thing, you know? And they were laying bricks in that hole that everything came around. And then after that,
Oh, interesting.
after that, like a loud voice literally yelled. Only time in my whole life I had a voice yell at me in my dream. And it was like, Joe, take a new direction, screaming at me. Right. And then that woke me up.
More obvious, huh?
Yeah. I mean, but at the same time, I remember talking to my buddy the day before. He was like, well, maybe you need to take a different direction or something, you know? So I thought maybe it's kind of hard. Sometimes your previous stuff intermingles with that too. But those symbols of the little people in the hole, the purple snake, all that stuff, that was true symbolism, man. You ever know like the difference between a dream? I'm sure you do. That has kind of brain stuff in there, and then when you have one of those really profound, this dream is definitely speaking to me dreams, you know.
Yeah, and that's where the discernment is really needed. When you have enough experience with dreams, you recognize the big ones when they come along, or what Jung would call the archetypal ones. They are full of these archetypal images and motifs, storylines. It feels like you're in a place that's different than the usual dream. It's a little further out there, for lack of a better term.
Yeah,
Like
sure.
you can have a lot of dreams about everyday concerns. The studies and stuff in the study of dreaming, it shows that a lot of people's dream content is about everyday concerns. It's called the continuity hypothesis of dreaming. And it's continuity from your day life to your night life to your sleep dream life. And they show that there's a lot of content in there about the things that you do sort of everyday sort of stuff. And then you have these dreams where it has these wild archetypal themes and symbols in them. And these are the ones that are more about the kind of constructing the deepest levels of what you are in your psyche. The part of you that you use in the everyday world is really more of a surface you. And then there's a part of you that you could call your more authentic or deeper self. And this is also has a sort of, it's going through a building process in the world. It's coming from the one world into the other. So you, in a way, are channeling it into this world by allowing your life to be built in a way that honors it, that gives it expression, creative expression in this world, that allows it to find its place here. It's a very non-rational sort of, the unconscious mind is by nature non-rational. And a lot of the imagery that it puts up at you does seem like it's way out there. But, like if you understand that the gnomes, these little creatures that were building putting the bricks down, they're
Right.
representatives or symbolic representations, or even sort of the, would be the word for it. They're sort of like the workers for these deep unconscious processes, the sort of building of you as a human being, as a conscious being in this reality. You're building it sort of a piece at a time, and it's coming up out of these deepest parts of yourself. The gnomes are these workers from these deep parts of you. Jung encountered a lot of these creatures from the deep, and he said that when he went real deep with it, that they often got like grotesque. They did things that were a little slippery, tricksterish sometimes.
Yeah.
But they had their own rationale for what they did. And he said that he initially found them repugnant. And then he remembered that there's an old scripture that says that you will make the most out of the least of these. And what he found is that his path to the soul within him was through the things that were the least valued about himself, the things that were the most overlooked, the things that kind of come up out of the dark, wet places deep down within oneself, which most people aren't even aware exists. Now, you can toke on some DMT and go visit the Machinos, and you're going to get a taste of what that world is, but at a very different sort of approach to it. When you approach the unconscious like Jung did, and then through a structured way like he taught in his active imagination technique, you're coming at it very soberly, in that sense that you don't need to be on the drug.
Right.
You more willingly engage with the underworld. These are creatures of the underworld, and there's a long mythological tradition. I mean, we know about it from the river Styx and Charon the ferryman and stuff like that. Persephone going, or who was it from the Greek mythology, who would go underground for half the year because she was given to the god of the underworld.
That's Persephone,
yeah, Persephone. It's a way of saying that you need to have the time and the inclination to go down into these deep parts of yourself, to go out of the daylight world, to turn your eyes within yourself. And then you'll find that these processes are going on in the background that's represented by these creatures that come up out of the ground, and they're building things, and they seem to have a purpose in mind that's independent of anything that you're doing. I mean, when I see that kind of action happening in a dream, I immediately start thinking, ooh, the unconscious is up to something here, because it's happening independently of you. It doesn't need the ego part of you, the rational part of you at all, which might be part of the reason why lucid dreaming in a space like that is at least different, because lucid dreaming activates the rational part of your mind, while the ego awareness of your mind while you're in a dream, and usually that part of your mind is shut down, so that you can just sort of participate, follow along with what's happening, and accept the reality of the dream without questioning it.
That's kind of what my biggest question was, is like this time I was having a dream that I was having a heart attack, like a couple of, and man, you're reminding me of all of the stuff that I read on Jung stuff. I think it's another synchronicity, man, that you are here. I can't believe you're here, dude. I'm still tripping on that. Because I was so stoked about talking about this, but this symbol woke me up out of that dream. That serpent, the purple one, and I became lucid, and it was almost like me and the snake had a happy feeling, like, hey, now finally you understand. And I had this intuitive feeling, like, oh, well, that's me, or something like that. Like I'm awake. I'm not having a heart attack. Does that make sense? Like,
what a moment for that to happen too. I mean, it's presenting this stark contrast to you, the vibrant life of the snake, this new life emerging, versus a man dying from a heart attack. There's a stark contrast there. Maybe implying a choice, but maybe implying that there was a process happening, something that was like, this feels like it's leading me to a dead end. So imagine that as the thing about feeling like you're having a heart attack. It's a symbol for something that's leading you to a dead end. And then you found this other way that says, no, I'm going to go this other direction. So what was the message that was given to you? You said, Joe, go in a new direction?
And that was like a couple of years ago. And I think I talked to you back then too, because I was like, yeah, man, I remember talking to you, because I actually picked up the phone and called you, if I remember correctly, and was like, man, I'm going through this thing. I'm out here in Florida living on the beach. I feel like I manifested my dreams, but I'm going through this crazy emotional ride, and I had this dream, and I want to talk to you about it on the show, but I don't think I ever talked to you about it on the show after that. I'd let this emotional ride that I was on take me over. And I think do you remember me calling you back then?
Yeah. And you had some crazy girl in your life, and you've been moving all over, man. You've been in Daytona, then you were in Wisconsin or something. I mean,
I went to New York, to Arizona,
you were in Sedona.
And then to Florida. And I mean, we were both driving each other crazy at the time, but it was like, I don't know. The more I look back on it, I was like, that was supposed to happen, but yeah. And then now, like a year and a half, 2 years later, the damn purple thing shows back up in a lucid dream,
Yeah.
And
there's
like you're not dying,
a new direction.
Right, right.
It's, you know, dude, and there's these new directions open up when when you've reached dead ends. You often have to continue doing things the old way until you're just fine. If there's something about it that you're stuck in, or you're looping in, or it's a pattern in your behavior, your thoughts, then it's you're going to have to kind of play it to the end. And that seems to be the idea of once you have this new option that opens up to you. You know, the purple snake is saying there's something coming alive in you that's going to help you to get past that dead end.
Yeah.
Or onto a different path. But you had to go that path to find out that it led to, you know, where it was going to lead to. It's just part of the process of, you know, of life we have to figure out things for ourselves. So
what have you been up to lately, man? Like I miss you in a sense. I'm almost getting nostalgia here talking to you.
Yeah, I'm getting some too. I've got some of those conversations we had recorded. There were a few nights, man, when we just went there. Yeah. It was awesome. And I know from your listeners were just digging it. And, you know, so, yeah, man, I've missed that. I have been doing something kind of wild. I was hired by a client, to create an audiobook for them. And they dropped this thing on me, and it's, all these recorded interviews that they did with a spirit channeler who was a what's the word for it? It's even beyond trance medium. She could open up her energy body to allow spirits to come and inhabit and speak through her. And so they decided, since they had access to anyone that they wanted, because of the stuff going on the other side, this council of these historical great soul type people arranged things so that these channelers, it was a couple who had this channeler friend, and they realized what she was capable of doing. And they are these Silicon Valley tech people. And they said, well, why don't we ask people like Albert Einstein how to fix global warming? Why don't we ask St. Francis how to heal the planet, and Wayne Dyer and Nikola Tesla and Teddy Roosevelt and climate scientists, people who've won Nobel Prizes and stuff. They're dead, you know, I mean, they're, in the sense, they're no longer here, but through the spirit channeler and this council on the other side, they hooked up with them, recorded all the sessions, and then dropped all those files on me and said, can you create an audiobook out of this? So I'm like, well, yeah,
sure.
Yeah, I can. Yeah. You know, this is because these were, you know, they took it and they transcribed it into a book, but these were the conversations that they had, and the book was much leaner, and it took out so I had to edit all that stuff up together, get it up to snuff for audiobook production, record all the narration for it so that the questions could be fluid. I would take the clips of these people talking, you know, Einstein talking about a breakthrough in nuclear fusion technology coming, and for example, and then I would take that and put it together with the question that they asked him. I would read all those parts, so I narrated it too, and so we put it all together. This audiobook is out, and then I kind of was like, you know, if you really want this message to get out, and I know that you do, you're really invested in this, you really need a podcast.
Yeah, exactly. So, that's what I would have said too.
Episode 1 is out. It's called Channeled Messages of Hope, with Carolyn Thomas, and the narrator, or the host of the podcast, is John Thomas, which I won't say is really me. And the yeah, so I'm putting together all this stuff for the people who created the book. And I mean, seemingly also, at least the way I'm thinking about it, is that the people on the other side who are organizing this thing, I'm also working for them. So
that's awesome, man. You know, and it takes a lot of guts to do that too, because there's going to be a healthy, if not more, amount of skepticism that's going to come towards that. But I think that's great. You know why? Because after reading Manly P. Hall's books he would talk specifically about people that had these gifts and that how they needed to be like protected, you know. But well, you know, you got to sift through a lot of stuff to get to the real sometimes too.
the real psionic assets, we can figure out who they are real quickly, especially when you've had some experience with this stuff. So yeah, man, we did this. She's the real deal. The channeler that was used, the primary one. They also used another one, and the information that came forward is just astounding. And Einstein, actually, I'm putting together the next episode that'll come out on Friday, and I actually addressed this through him, something he said during the interview. We're like, well, how are we going to get people to believe that we really talked to Albert Einstein? And he said that people are ready for this information, that the prove it mentality is sort of an energy that you put yourself into, that you really can't have anything proved to you when your mind is closed like that. And he said that people are ready to understand that the other side is right freaking there.
Yeah, definitely.
It's not way out there somewhere at the outer edges of the universe. It's parallel to us, and that they are deeply involved with us through connections that we are not usually consciously aware of. But like Nikola Tesla said, he knows how to enter into people's dreams and give them pictures that they use as ideas. And he's working with people who are physicists who kind of resonate with him, and other scientists and inventors and stuff, because that's what he did. And dude, he's still doing it on the other side.
Wow.
After his body died, his spirit went to this place, the afterlife, and he got hooked up with others who were like-minded with him. People like Einstein, two great physicists who are now thinking about the things that are our greatest challenges, physics and technology and stuff that they specialize in as scientists. They're thinking about these things, coming up with ideas and inspirations, and sending them to people who are today's scientists and inventors, and people who are receptive to this information.
You think maybe people like Tom Campbell, maybe? And
oh, I'm sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
And probably hundreds, if not thousands, of other people that we've never heard of. They are people working for like Tesla Inc. They're trying to people working on the new clean fusion reactors in these companies that are trying to create a clean energy source for us, a nuclear source that relies on fusion instead of fission. Both Einstein and Tesla told us that this, and Mileva Maric Einstein, Albert Einstein's first wife, all three of them told us independently of each other during separate interviews that the fusion technology is our hope for ever having a power source that is not fossil fuel based. Fossil fuel, even though we've made strides with all these other renewable energy sources like solar and wind and stuff like that, we still get 80% of our power from burning fossil fuels. And it is a catastrophic disaster that is happening right now. We are on the very bleeding edge of what is about to happen. If we continue on this, the planet will be close to being unlivable by the end of this century. I mean, it's not far away.
It's too even if there's a big debate about that, but I would say that even if you look at it from like, let's take quote the practical side out of it, and there's an argument there too. And I think you're right. I'm kind of in the middle when it comes to a lot of this stuff, but everything is evolving, and we should have free energy by now, a free sources of natural energy by now. Like, it's 2025, man,
Yeah, we should have had it 50 years ago.
Yeah.
yeah.
Right.
But there's some kind of parasitic force, I don't know what else to call it except for a parasite, that it's figured out a way of dominating the world through its immense wealth by extracting this resource from the ground, and figuring out how to burn it to produce energy. And any other energy source that could challenge that monopoly, that cartel, has been absolutely ruthlessly suppressed. Einstein and Tesla both told us that there were things that they figured out in their physics, their research. They wrote it in their papers, but those papers were gone through by call them agencies. I mean, the FBI went through Tesla's papers. They seized Tesla's papers when he died in 45. But they said that both of them said that there are things that were revealed in those papers that would have brought this technology, the ideas as the basis for this technology for clean energy to us, probably starting 75 years ago.
Yeah, I believe that. Why I believe that is the Weber's, because the Weber CIA document out there that shows how they investigated the Gateway process, just Robert Monroe stuff, ought to tell you that they've investigated everything. Anything that started stirring up a stink in that realm, they've investigated it, you know?
Yeah. Well, they couldn't allow another 50s, 60s revolution to happen in this country because it's not, you know, the United States is the military wing of the global triumvirate that's dominating the world. And you couldn't have the people of the country rising up to affect the government in any sort of significant way. You know, it's to change the society from within through civil rights and, you know, the sort of freedom of that we had during this heyday of the 60s and 70s when, I mean, if you look at it from a social engineering point of view, shit got out of control, bro. And you're not going to let that happen again. You know, there's not going to be these mass marches on Washington, D.C. and people, you know, walking right up to the doors of the Congress and saying, no, you will do this because this million people you see here is backed by 100 million out there. We will shut this country down if you don't.
Man, listen to the fire in you, dude. Like you're involved with some stuff now, man. Like, no, but you know, I think, you know, there's a comment in the chat that says Jung's been dead for forever now. I want to hear someone that has living thoughts. I get it, but I also think that we're addicted to people's, I mean, please don't take this wrong, but there's so much content out there now that I really think that we're addicted to just scroll until we get validation, you know? And like, Carl Jung's work. I've been studying Carl Jung's work since I don't know how long now. And I'm probably not even halfway there to understanding the depths of it. Right. Like I'm just,
man. 30 years here. And I feel the same way. I'm always finding new dimensions to what he taught. It does need to be updated, and it does need to be presented in a way that is kind of jives with where people are at now. And I can tell you, at the r/Jung at Reddit, where I've been a moderator forever, we have a good community there. There are people who are really engaging with Jung's ideas and teachings, but also with the mind of, or like the goal in mind of updating this for people now. Jung is a deep freaking dive, but you can get introduced to some of the basic ideas and learn them without having to do as deep of a dive, you know, into that material by engaging with a community of people who are into this stuff. A lot of it is topical, the things that we talk about there. We don't start off with like, well, on page 245 of the collected works, you'll refer to subparagraph C, where Jung says, you know, like we don't get into that, you know, nerd out on this stuff that much. You know, I mean, some of us do, but
sure,
for the most part, it's a Reddit conversation. Yeah, I do too. You know, but it's a Reddit conversation among a community of people who are trying to bring these teachings and ideas to apply to this world where we are like endlessly scrolling, where our institutions have broken down, where people are still looking for meaning to their lives, sense of deep connection with themselves, authenticity.
I hope so.
I mean, the reality for most people is just that it's just, you know, they're grinding away at whatever it is that's helping them to survive, and they're barely holding on. You know, I mean, it's that way for enough people that I know to say that I think it's pretty common these days. And the rest of us just aren't getting along as well as we used to.
Well, consciousness exploration and the study of the mysteries and love is the keys to unlocking, I believe, so much of what we're lacking. And I think now more than ever, like I've even heard people say, man, I don't feel the magic anymore. I lost the magic. Well, it's like, yeah, well, 90% of the stuff you scroll through is either AI driven made content, which AI is a great tool if you know how, if you use it for tools, but if you're just creating content with AI and that's all you do, or you're just creating conspiracy videos, now we're in a world of fear all the time, and everybody's, you know, tightening their belts and they're scared the world's going to end and everyone's lying to you. And it's like, I feel like I'm walking in a lucid dream of victimhood in reality, you know, in reality. And that I'm more afraid that we're going to create a dependence upon those things than actually exploring ourselves as individuals, you know?
Yeah, man. You know, okay, let me give you a dream, since that's what we started talking about. This was a fascinating one that showed up at Reddit the other day, and it is very indicative of our collective situation. There was a guy who he starts off, what he remembers is that there was some like speaker on the TV or some source that's just blabbering on about something, and he's trying to tune in and understand it, but it's just this sort of stream of words, and it starts making him feel like uncomfortable. And as he's doing that, he's pulling fingernail clippings out of his mouth and he's piling them up on the bed, and like little chunk after chunk, pile after pile of fingernail clippings. Now, he didn't see the clipping happen. What I mean is just little pieces of fingernail. And he says that it's like so much of it comes out of his mouth that it starts piling up on his bed. Now, guess what that symbolizes?
I have no idea, man.
And if anybody I have to be in the other room or I'll get feedback on my mic. So I walked out after I was on YouTube. I'm in the other room right now, so I can't read what anybody's typing in the chat.
Okay? Sure.
But if you, let's see, timestamp right now. All right, what 2039? Okay, so we'll see if anybody who had this idea.
So the fingernail clippings on his bed.
Type it into the chat. So yeah, the fingernail clippings were piling up on his bed. So look, we think about the action. This is, I'll give a quick lesson in dream interpretation here, okay? You look at the context first. The dream is creating a scenario, and you understand that kind of one thing is leading to another. So first, he's trying to tune in as this, something is talking on the TV or computer screen or something. It wasn't even important enough for him to really notice what it was. It's just, it's there. It's kind of like it's bad news, and he's trying to tune in to figure out what it is. He's trying to, like, you know, really like comprehend what's being said, but it's not really making sense to him. And that's as that action happens, he's now reaching into his mouth and pulling out clippings. So the way I teach dream interpretation is to look at it through the lens of symbolism and story. All the imagery in a dream, it's symbolic of something, it's symbolism, symbols used in context to express meaning, or it's expressed through the story. The meaning is expressed through the story, the scenario that's created. And so I'm thinking of the symbolism of little clips. And, you know, you and I have both worked in video production.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah. So little clips of something that doesn't, I mean, it's hard and it's in his mouth. So it's like it's becoming part of him, or it's getting inside him somehow. So this is what he said. After what I said was, you know, this kind of reminds me of the idea of watching like little clips on, you know, YouTube or TikTok or something. Like it's kind of doesn't have any substance to it, like a fingernail, you know, like there's no substance to it, but it still gets inside of you. And it's just this endless stream of this stuff. And he says, dude, I spend 6 to 9 hours a day just scrolling through this shit. And it feels like I'm just getting buried in it.
Right.
But I can't get my mind out of it. I can't get away from it. And I tell you, yeah, those freaking short videos are addictive, but they don't do anything for you. In fact, they just make you feel uneasy. Even if I don't know, man, a lot of that stuff makes you feel uneasy. And that's what his feeling was in the dream, which that feeling of like there's some kind of
biting your nails is an uneasy feeling, because so you're nervous.
And biting your nails.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's all like a compounded symbol.
Yep.
You know?
Which is often found in when you dig into a dream symbol, you find that there's like these deeper aspects to it. But you think of something that can get you as an entry point into understanding the symbol. But ultimately, what you're doing is understanding that the symbol is connected with some part of yourself. There's something in him that's expressing the idea to him of like, dude, you know, this is like a this is like a nervous habit, and it's making you uneasy, and you it's happening unconsciously. You see people who bite their nails a lot. Oftentimes, their finger is at their mouth, and they're not even aware of what they're doing.
Yeah,
You
man.
know, and I've seen that with the scrolling behavior. You get caught in it, and you can't get away. So
Yeah, I had
that was
an ex that used to chew her fingers off, man, and she was full of fear. And I'm like, oh, it's just a habit. It's like,
fretting,
yeah, but
nervousness.
I know it's a habit, but like, every time I say these things to people, JM, they feel like I'm insulting them, and it's because I have resting bitch face. I don't know. But like, I'm not trying to insult people. Usually when I talk to people, I'm like trying to tell them, because I like talking about deep things. It's like, there's something underneath that's making you so afraid of all this stuff, like otherwise you're something you're not looking at. And that's really what I was trying to figure out tonight. And, look, I was talking about dreams. I pulled the sun card. I haven't seen it or talked to you in like a long time. You just popped in the chat. That's freaking amazing. It's one synchronicity after another. And so I got to ask you this question, because it's almost like we were on the same frequency, maybe just for that split second that you showed up in here. So there's the dream, right? There's dreaming, which fades out. We don't remember it. Sometimes we do. Sometimes we don't remember the whole dream. Then there's lucid dreaming. And then there's this kind of OBE experience. Do you think the symbols mean the same thing on all three levels? If we looked at it as levels, right? That's all I'm saying.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, that's how we approach it in professional dream work, especially in the Pardes method from Linda Schiller. Linda teaches that there's sort of an obvious surface level of a dream. It's the content that's there. And then you can do like association method, and you can find some of these deeper things with it. And then you start finding that there's another layer. Now, one symbol can go from the obvious to more of the associative to tangential, the word I'm looking for here, maybe more into a mystical or spiritual level, and then to what you might call a mystical level, the fourth level of it. She uses Jewish mystical, the traditions of dream interpretation from Jewish mysticism like Kabbalah, but she's also a psychotherapist and a dream worker. So she's synthesized these in a really interesting. So Linda Schiller, the book is Modern Dream Work, and she lays all of this stuff out. But she says, yeah, the same symbol can have, there's levels of meaning to it. You can start with the surface level and just keep going deeper and deeper. Because if we take it back to what we were talking about with archetypes, these like the purple cobra, some of the themes that were going on when you encountered the cobra, it's very archetypal imagery. So on one way, the archetypal, what Jung meant was that it's common across eras, cultures, localities, histories, like different mythologies, folklore. Like you find these symbols come up time and again with the same either exact meaning or general meaning, but across these cultures, across time. And what he says is that it means that there's something that's universal about the human experience that's bringing these symbols into people's dreams.
Right.
And so, but that's one meaning of archetypal. But the other meaning of it is that archetypal is a bridge between mind and matter. And this goes into what Jung, his theory of synchronicity, is based on the idea that there is a sort of a mechanism built into the universe that activates through the internal happenings for you, actually activates things in the external world to line up in a way that is synchronous. It can seem like coincidence, and there, you can't find a direct cause and effect relationship, but it's not just coincidence. It's actually meaningful. The world is lining up to like reflect something back that's happening to you internally. That's why people who are going through spiritual awakenings can often have these wild things that happen that they just can't explain, and it will happen over and over again. And it's sort of it's like the universe is winking at them and going, yeah, okay, you wanted to know how deep the rabbit hole goes. Well, let's find out. Let's start getting down here. I'm going to show you that this world is not what it appears to be. See, we think of it as this physical world that is under sort of Newton's laws of, everything happens in a way, it's all just matter that's interacting under the physical laws of the universe.
Sure.
The force and,
it's like a materialist point of view, right? So to speak.
Yeah, the science, the rational materialism is the paradigm that we live under. And this is what it says, is that this is the world and there's nothing more to it. Well, there is what Jung said and was that there is the mind, the consciousness of what we, each of us are as human beings in a body. We're one part physical, the world of matter, but we're also one part not physical. What that is, who the heck knows? But it's mind, and that mind and matter are two ends of the same spectrum. This is the most important insight that Jung, I think, that he handed out from his explorations, because he's somebody who went so deep into his own mind that he found that his mind could influence and even shape the physical reality.
Yeah. Yes, man.
Because
we call that
because they're two ends of a spectrum.
Right. And we call that, quote, magic or mysticism, but we're only calling it that because we don't understand it yet, man. Like, it just doesn't seem real, so to speak, right? Like, so it has to be magic. But the Kabbalists understood that. They just put archetypal names and religious names on the spheres of energy, starting at mind all the way down to matter, but it was all part of the same tree, and it was one reflecting the other, so to speak,
And those images, those crazy dream images, mystical images, symbols, are archetypes. These are the intermediaries between mind and matter. We interact with matter through our psyche, through our mind, through the archetypal images. The way you engage with that purple cobra, which, by the way, kudos for having that last dream you said, you come to some kind of terms with the snake, and that was great, because
definitely I didn't step on it
as the sort of intermediary into the archetypal world. The archetypes are this intermediate. This is it's our graphical user interface. Okay, when you click on an icon on your phone and it activates an app, the app is this information that runs in the background and delivers like an experience on your phone. When you are dreaming at an archetypal level, this deeper level of dreaming, you are activating a graphical interface that interacts with the world of matter, with the underlying sort of principles that construct this reality for us. You're actually interacting with it. So this is why Jung's insight is just so mind-boggling and important. And by the way, he came up with this after 20 years of working with Wolfgang Pauli, who is a Nobel Prize-winning theoretical physicist, one of the early pioneers of quantum physics mechanics. And dude won a Nobel, but he was also just one of the most incredible minds of his generation. And he came to Jung to get help with his dreams and with some things that he was experiencing, kind of like he needed the doctor. Jung very quickly recognized what was happening and said, I want you to talk with my student. She will be your therapist. You and I are going to be collaborators. And they collaborated to devise the theory of synchronicity. And they worked on it for 20 years before they finally came up with this unification of physics and psychology. And I still think that they delivered something that people need to know. Because we say these days that, we're looking for answers, and we are, but the answers are actually already out there. And for the people who say, why bother with studying Carl Jung, like, because the dude gave us insights about what we really are and how to interface with the machinery that we are as psychological beings.
Yeah, like,
He
wouldn't
gave a
you
blueprint for interacting with it.
exactly, like on a practical level, wouldn't you want to know? I want to know. Like, I don't want to just look at the website. I want to be able to get into the back end of the code and see what creates the website. You know, that's
Yep.
that's kind of how I look at it. You know,
Yeah.
but and I know it's getting a little late. I don't want to keep you, man. But look, I'd like to say this live too, and I don't know what you can commit to, but if I say it live, then I would love to have you back more frequently on this broadcast, man, because dreams are so massive of a topic. Like, it's one area of conscious exploration, but it does encompass a lot of conscious exploration. But so what are your thoughts on journeying? Okay, so when I say journeying, active imagination, I took a long time ago, I think it was after Gordon White came on the broadcast, who's another magician, but he's a chaos magician, but he had a course on journeying, and I know that you talk about something similar. I just want to hear what your thoughts are on it, where he actually takes the journey into his mind through active imagination, allows it to unfold, which is kind of like scrying and similar methods. But when you allow it to unfold, you come in contact with archetypal things. For instance, let's say you have this issue in your life where you can't seem to overcome this fear in your life. No matter what you do, it keeps cycling. But if you took an internal journey and let's say the symbol was like a dragon or whatever, and then you defeat the dragon. I know it sounds nerdy, but let's say you defeat the dragon. You go to the dungeon and you go through the story, you defeat the dragon deep into your mind. Well, in theory, defeating that dragon and that symbol would reflect back into your life and therefore help you get past it. Do you think there's a practical thing there?
Oh, dude, absolutely. Let me share with you something a caller on Coast to Coast AM when I was on with, it was one of the times I was with George Norrie. There was a caller, and I find out that I know some things about dreams, right? So
Sure.
Yeah, I mean, people call in and share their experiences, which is freaking awesome. This guy told the story about a dream, a recurring dream, where there was a tornado that would just come ripping through the landscape, and he knew it was after him. That tornado wanted him and hunted him. And he said he always would just get terrified and try to get away. Well, it had happened, it had been going on for decades. And he finally, one night, the dream is happening. He's on a train and he sees the tornado and he's like, no, this time I don't care. Do whatever the hell you want to. I'm not going to be afraid of you.
Right.
And he said that the tornado became almost like this sentient thing that ripped the roof off of the train and sucked him out of the train car way up into the air. So now he's up in the funnel cloud and spinning around, and he still wouldn't give in. He's like, all right, if this is the end of me, it's the end of me, but I'm not going to live in fear anymore. He said that the tornado put him down and he never had the dream again. And that he felt like he had crossed over something in his own existence, this fear that was summarized as this tornado is symbolized. In that, summarized, what I mean is like the image captures all the dynamics. Angry tornado bearing down on you. What a metaphor for fear.
Sure.
I mean, I didn't have a chance to talk with him as much as I would like to have to figure out maybe what that fear was. But his lesson that he did it in a dream and it translated over to his life. This has been borne out by the research into dreams and nightmares in particular, is that if you can face a fear in a dream, then you can face it or be more readily face it in your waking life. Because your brain is rewiring as you dream. It's called neuroplasticity. It's a process that happens every time you dream and only while you dream. They've shown through watching the brain as a person dreams and dreams about things that they fear, is that you can either have more neural networks and stronger ones to the center of fear in your brain, or if you overcome the fear, it will actually reroute around the fear center so that those signals in the brain can travel without having to hit that fear.
Really?
So it actually reroutes around it. Yeah. And I was blown away by this. I wrote that book, probably the last time I was on your show was when I was doing the PR for the book, Nightmares, Your Guide to Interpreting Your
That's such a great book, man. Yeah.
And it was something I figured I found in the research literature as I was writing that book. I was like, seriously, you actually, while dreaming, you can rewire your brain so that you won't fear anymore as something that, like in that guy's example, when he said no to the tornado, he said no to the fear. And if you were watching his brain while this process is occurring, you would actually see the neural networks disconnect from the fear center and reroute around it so that there could be communication channels that didn't have to involve the fear anymore.
So back to the whole, why is Carl Jung so important? Because, man, if you could learn how to use that goes back to the old, it all ties in, the old mystery of Hermetic mysteries of as within, so without. And a lot of times we can't fix, or we cycle what's called cycling. We keep cycling through these things in our life and we're like, what's the problem here? Why can't I face this thing? Why does it keep happening? And it's something inside you that you can't deal with. No, there's nothing so-called in the mirror of physical reality that's helping you. I think Carl Jung showed us, in a sense, what would be considered a magical way of fixing it. And it's, again, we call it magic because we don't understand exactly how the placebo works just yet. We're figuring it out,
We don't know the cause and effect relationship, which is what material science asks us to do. And this is rife throughout the study of anything that doesn't have the sort of provability as, well, I'm a chemist and I mix these two these two substances together and it produces this effect. And every time I do it and every time anybody else does it, it's going to produce the same effect. And we can tell exactly why it happens. Well, we can't do that with a lot of things that are matters of mind and spirit. We can't. We have to have a new way of understanding these things with maybe a new science, like a science of consciousness, which a number of prominent people have asked for. My next book is in production right now. It's called The Science of the Paranormal, and it's coming out through Skyhorse Publishing. And one of the things that I found out through that immersive process of looking into the real science behind paranormal and psychic and whatnot, I found over and over again that the effect could be proven to exist. Studies of, say, telepathy, they showed unequivocally it's in the data, it's there. There is an effect there. But the scientists who study this stuff, and there's only a few of them relatively, and they're very underfunded for the most part, can't explain exactly what the cause is. So the mainstream scientific community says, well, until you can do that, then we're just not going to pay any attention.
Right. We're not going to fund it. We're not. Do you have a way to measure it? I was talking about this the other night in coma patients, that they're starting to see that people that have these things called sleep spindles. So now they're realizing that when coma patients have these certain spikes and sleep spindles, there's like a 70% chance that they're going to wake up from the coma. But not only that they actually can hear us. There's a possibility that, an even bigger possibility, that they're actually conscious, stuck inside their body while they're in a coma. But when they see those spindles, that there's a 70% chance they're going to come back, wake up, and even a closer or a higher chance too of them being totally independent within a year. That's 70% is a big chunk. But that shows us the limitations still of science, because all they can see are the little Morse code bumps of the frequency waves of the neural activity in the brain,
And they can't equate that to what the person is really experiencing.
No way.
We can
Yeah.
measure these things in the brain and say that there's all this activity going on, but the thing that's missing from it is understanding that there's a pattern or a network is where the real information is found, rather than pointing to this area of the brain and saying, well, this is why you can hear high-pitched tones, because you've got this little piece of gray matter that is processing that sensory input. It's like, well, no, it's connected as part of a network that's putting that sensory input into constructing an experience of self, of existence, of consciousness. You have to understand the pattern. You have to understand the system that's producing the effect. And this is where I think that science really loses its way, because honestly, I just don't think they have the imagination for it. Most of the scientists who are studying this stuff, or
Yeah,
they're
that's
just kind of
sad.
locked into a way of thinking that doesn't permit them. Dude, neuroscience has been promising us for 50 years now that it's going to come up with a provable theory of consciousness that's all based in brain function. And they still haven't proven it. And they've tried and tried and tried and tried. And it's not there.
That's what I'm saying, man. So you like that person in a
because it
coma,
can't be proven.
they could be
Yeah.
experiencing fighting a dragon or whatever reality they're in, you know, like I was talking about purple snakes, and all we have to measure it still is an EEG-gram, like a little thing that bumps when they see electrical activity. That's all we
But
have,
here's the fly in that ointment is of thinking that this is the brain activity is what's actually producing this experience of, the person who's comatose and they're dreaming or seeing imagery of fighting a dragon. They're having this real deep experience of something. Dick Cheney's heart was stopped for a week while they replaced it with a mechanical pump, and they had him induced coma the whole time. He said that he had one long lucid dream about living in a little villa in Italy, and he would just kind of putter away his days. He'd go to the porch and he'd read the newspaper, and then he would come in and he would have a cup of tea, and then he would, whatever. He's like it was just like completely normal life, but I was in this lucid state. Well, here's the fly in that ointment. People think, well, it must be produced by brain activity that's happening while his heart is stopped. Technically, he's dead. That is the clinical definition of death, is when you're in cardiac arrest. But here's the thing. Eben Alexander's case, he caught meningitis, a virulent meningitis of the brain. He was under a bacterial infection that was eating away his brain. It sent him into a coma. For a week, he had no discernible brain activity that could be other than just weak signals from the brainstem. Yet he had one of the most vivid experiences, what we call a near-death experience, that's ever been chronicled. This is a Harvard-trained neurosurgeon who was out for a week. And under clinical conditions that have been documented, that said there was no way that his brain could be producing such a vivid any experience, because his brain wouldn't be even forming new memories. It would be like when you're under anesthesia. You go out on one end, and if you wake up on the other, then it's as if no time passed. You just experience blankness. Well, that's what happens during coma. You're not producing new memories. So it just should seem like a big blank spot.
Or anesthesia. Anesthesia feels like that too.
There's no sleep spindles. Yeah, and there's nothing like a dream activity. There's no sleep spindles. They looked at all of that stuff, dude, and they couldn't find an answer. It was reviewed by other doctors too. He had a really rich medical. This is a treasure trove for a medical investigator, because he was in I forget which hospital he was in, Boston General or something like that, but he was being looked at by the best people in the world, because this was one of their own. He was a premier neurosurgeon trained at Harvard. He taught at the faculty of whatever, I think at Harvard, but somewhere else maybe. But anyway, this is one of the top neuroscientists, neurosurgeons in the world, who had this experience and then was able to tell us that his brain was not producing the experience, and he can prove it. And that was the basis of his book, Proof of Heaven, because he said, well, if it's not my brain producing the experience, what is it? And what he ultimately found was that he was on the other side. He was experiencing the afterlife, but he was still alive, and he came back. So he had a near-death experience that lasted for a week. while he was in a coma.
Brother,
Yeah, so it's not being produced by the brain.
I ran into a guy that I've known my whole life that lived out here who got robbed, shot 8 times. 8 times. And when I came back home here in Arkansas, okay, I went up to the Forest Tower station up there. He came running over to me because they used to kind of giggle about what's your radio show about? And I tell them, they'd all giggle. And he was kind of one of them, not so much as the others. And he came running over to me and he's like, man, I was shot. I went to the hospital. And I'm like, what? I couldn't believe he was still alive. He said that, he had 4 separate OBE experiences in the hospital. Like, you could tell on his face it changed his life, Like, he's like, man, I saw people coming in and out, and I was talking to this guy that was telling me everything's going to be okay. And, like, I'm like, what? He goes, no, man, he's like, it's real. It's real. It's real. It's real. He was trying to, I mean, I didn't feel validated. I already know it's real, but just to see, and this is what I thrive on, man, is to see when someone has that conscious experience, that shift, and it just changes everything. I hate that he had to get shot and almost died. That's terrible, But he said
to then have the experience of himself separately from his body.
Right.
Out of body experience is transformative. There are some people at the Division of Perceptual Studies at the University of Virginia who would just nerd out on this stuff. Some researchers there. It's one of the only major academic institutions in the world where this stuff is studied seriously. And one of the things that came out of their research was that out-of-body experiences are a hell of a lot more common than most of us know, and that the experience is often transformative, even without it being like a near-death experience. Just finding out for a fact that your little point of awareness in this universe, can continue to exist when your body is not functioning or it's asleep. People also experience this in dreams and through astral and Bob Monroe and some of the stuff he did to help people be able to separate their awareness from their body. But it is transformative. There's a book called NDEs Unveiled by Susan Amsden that is a really great look at the various cases. She works for the Association for Near-Death Studies, and she has been doing it for years as a volunteer and a staff member and all that. And she put together all of these stories that she's encountered of people who've had these experiences, and she kind of goes into some of the stuff that they talked about with how it transformed their way of understanding themselves in the world, such a fundamental way that they before the NDE they saw and acted in the world in one way, and after the NDE they saw and acted in the world in a very different way.
Right.
And it's over and over again, these astounding cases, some of them through doctors and stuff, people who were, they're trained medical people. They understand resuscitation. They understand what can happen as a person is dying. There are experiences that you can have that are physical based, but then they get into the ones that they experienced that they said, there's no way that this was a physical experience. Mary Neal, I think is her name. She's a doctor, an orthopedic surgeon. Got caught under a waterfall on a kayaking expedition.
Oh, man.
She was under the water for 15 minutes under the waterfall. It took them another 15 minutes to get it to the point where her head was above water. She was underwater for a half an hour. They pulled her over to the side of the river and started giving her CPR. And she said she was watching all this happen as she was walking away with this crowd of people, like souls, who were sort of on a parade in a way, not parade, but like on a pilgrimage to this great city where there was this huge gathering that was happening. And she was like, I need to go with them. And she's walking away from her body and the people who are around her trying to save her. And she's just like, yeah, I'm ready to go. This is a lady who has she's like, you wouldn't understand. I've got children, I've got husband, I've got a good marriage. I've got my own practice. We're established, we've got all the money in the world. We have exciting lives, She's like, I had every reason to live. But as soon as I turned around and I saw what the afterlife was like, I was like, oh, She knew her family was going to be okay. She had this feeling of incredible peace and love. Everything was all right. No matter what happens,
Wow.
it looks like it's crap. It looks like it's all going to hell. No, everything is all right. It's the way it's supposed to be. And she was ready to go. But her case was one of the ones that have been documented from NDEs where they went, if she was underwater for half an hour.
Yeah, I was thinking, like,
I
at
think-
some point, you become brain dead, supposedly, and like,
Yeah. Once she's hypoxic and there hasn't been any oxygen coming to her brain, and release of carbon dioxide from her system through breathing, she said that the literature shows that after about 7 minutes, that the part of the brain that can form memories is totally shut down. So you could say some of the things that she experienced at first was maybe hallucinatory. It's the dying brain. Okay, it's producing this experience. Okay. Well, what happened after that 7 minutes? What about the other 23 minutes that she was underwater? What about the other maybe 5 or 10 minutes that it took for them to like revive her before she started breathing again?
so trippy.
You can't explain that. You can't explain it medically. And dude, by the way, there was a major study that came out from, it was 25 co-authors across 6 institutions, some of the largest hospitals in the world, one in London, one in Boston, one in New York. I think the name is Sam Parnia, who studied this. He's a really high-level medical researcher, doctor. And they went through all the things that they try to write off NDEs as, every one of them that comes out of the medical literature, and they were able to knock them each down and say, it can't be that. It can't be that. It can't be a dream. It can't be DMT released by the brain during its last moments of life. It can't be, hypoxia. It's not any of these things, because they were able to through peer-reviewed scientific methods, they were able to prove and get it published in one of the premier journals, in the Journal of Resuscitation, that none of those other explanations are it. And they said, we don't know what it is exactly, but if you study across the hundreds or thousands of cases that we did in hospital settings where we're getting to people right after they've been resuscitated, and I mean, not right after, but they identify who these people are, and they're able to start doing their research on them and pull their medical records and get them involved in the studies and all that. They said that it's a transcendent experience that highly suggests that there is really an afterlife. And to hear medical researchers say that was astounding, because this is usually the kind of thing that gets you run out of town. But
Yeah.
there were 25 co-authors. There were 25 co-authors across 5 or 6 major medical institutions that all contributed their people to this multi-year study, multi-levels of, all of the scientific protocols were followed. So there is something there. There is something that is existence that is separate from the physical body. And anyway, it's in Susan's book. She documents all this, and it blew me away, dude. Susan Amsden, NDEs Unveiled. That's the book. And
can you, we have to wrap this up, but can you tell us again, like, how, the podcast that, well, just give your links out again, please, but the podcast too, that we could listen to with the channeler on it one more time.
Oh, I would love. It's called Channeled Messages of Hope. There's a YouTube channel. It has one video. It's episode 1. It's only 20 minutes long, but it introduces you to the mission and the process for gathering this information, talking with these people on the other side, getting the answers, compiling it all into the audiobook Channeled Messages of Hope by Carolyn Thomas. And then if you use Channeled Messages of Hope, hopefully by now the search engines have picked up enough that it'll get you to us. I mean, there's a lot of channeled messages out there these days. And honestly, I've watched, I don't want to say a lot of it, but enough of it to be like, okay, and it's, I understand what's going on. A lot of these people are, they're tapping into something, some kind of energy pattern or energy field. The Bob Monroe did a lot of this in his Explorer series, and
right.
He's like, a lot of these people, what they're doing is tapping into an energy field. It contains its own information and even its own sort of personalities in it, and they're just channeling that. It's not necessarily the soul of a person on the other side. But in this book, I really think that they talked to Gandhi, Einstein, St. Francis, Ronald Reagan, John McCain. They wanted to talk to policymakers. So Teddy Roosevelt, John Muir, Wayne Dyer, Nikola Tesla. It's crazy, dude. And it's people will just dig it. So yeah, channeled messages of hope. And I'm JM DeBoard, jmdeboard.com.
You still have dreams123.net?
I'm still doing that. I haven't been doing it as much. You can imagine with all these other things I've been doing. I've been a little busy with other things to keep up with the blog. But dreamschool.net, I did a live series starting last fall. We did a monthly series of live classes, 5-6 hours a week of, live interactive dream interpretation. And we went through the first series of that. Takes you through 6 months of immersive training in dream interpretation and analysis. And I had one student who finished the whole thing. Kudos to her. And we're going to start up another one with that student as one of my teachers now. So we're trying to sort of take the next step there at Dream School. So dreamschool.net is the place. And there's a lot of pre-recorded classes there. If anybody sort of wants to get the lowdown without having to show up live, they can show up for the pre-recorded classes on things like dream symbols, dream characters, stuff like that. So yeah, man.
Well, I will be in touch with you and hopefully have you back on more frequently, because I've been ranting for about a year. I just started doing these, my midlife crisis rants. So I think I'm getting to the end of that to where I can get guests and stuff back on, and I'd just love to have you back, man. I miss all of this stuff, man. It's been a real, I don't even know how to explain it. It's like the fulfillment of nostalgia and the best way to even have you drop in tonight like this, man. And super synchronistic.
Synchronicity, dude. That's young. I happened to get done with my work and I went, okay. And I watched a little bit of basketball and that game was over, some small conference, title game kind of thing. And I'm like, well, what do I do now? And there's another game on and I don't know, that's not really engaging me. And then I'm like, okay, let me pop up YouTube here. And there you are. It was like Joe Roop live streaming on Fringe FM. I'm like, oh yeah, I'm gonna click on this button.
Speaking of which, I was watching a game the other night. It was a championship. I forget who was playing, but a guy walked. It was yesterday. A guy walks up to the free throw, like right in front of the back, and he does an underhanded free throw. Have you ever seen anybody do that? Like when you're a kid and you can't. Last time I did an underhanded free throw shot was when I was a kid and a little bitty kid, and I'm like, well, I can't shoot it like them. I'm just going to throw it up there. But this guy did it so naturally. It was in a championship game or something. And the what do you call them, announcers? They didn't say nothing. They acted like it was totally natural. And I haven't watched sports in a long time, so I was like, when did they start doing underhanded free throws?
Isn't that awesome? Yeah, there was a guy he was one of the Guinness record holders for most consecutive free throws. I remember seeing this a long time ago, but at least he used to be back in the day. He was the record holder, and he shot his free throws underhanded. It's just sit there automatic to make hundreds in a row. And so, yeah, there's, it doesn't, I guess it would surprise me to see it these days because, kids just don't do that these days, I guess, but
it was crazy, man. It was some school I'd never heard of too. I was about to turn it off, and when the guy, here it is. It's Wofford versus Furman. Wofford and Furman. I don't know if you.
Yeah.
Wofford, yeah. And the guy for I think Wofford, was 77-74, 5:32 left in the second. He gets up there and he's doing underhanded free throws. I was just tripping out. I've never seen anything like it.
That's awesome. Wow, Ed. Yeah, that's awesome. I had the over in that game. I was very happy to see the final score.
That's why you're watching basketball, huh? All right. Okay.
Hey, man, you gotta know your teams and your sports before you start dropping your money on it.
Man,
one of those obscure things that I got into, man. You know me, I'm always digging into something. I found sports betting, and I found that there is a way that you can I'm not going to recommend it to anyone though, because it took years to figure out. But yeah, you can start getting pretty good at it if you know.
Oh
But you,
man.
you got to do better. You got to do better than 6 out of 10. So if you can't win 6 out of 10 of your bets, then you're going to lose money. And I tell you, 6 out of 10 is actually a hard thing to do.
Yeah, it is. Even as a day trader, 6 out of 10's hard, right? So if you're hitting them on basket or
that's your break
sports, you know,
even. Yeah, that's your break even. So you got to do better than that.
yeah,
But yeah, we had Wofford versus Furman.
that was it.
Awesome.
That was the game I was watching. But
well, I was there in spirit. I try not to watch the games I bet on because you just get nervous, wondered about the final score and if you're going to win your bet and that kind of stuff. So I tune into other games. I let those play out and without me watching them.
man, you guys, this is J.M. DeBoard for the new listeners. Like this guy, back when I was started talking about OBs years ago for the first time, this dude was one of the only people that said, "Hey, by the way, I traveled out of body. I came to your house and I saw you crashed out on the couch through a screen door." And that is exactly where I was sleeping. I wasn't even in the shack at that time. I don't know why. I kept going in the house and I was trying to get out of body on the couch, and I had the front door open, and you were like, you were doing something, man. You were just laying down, and I tripped out so much when I said, dude, you actually did see me, and yeah, that's when I knew you were legit, man. I knew you were legit before then, but that was another crazy synchronicity,
It was totally spontaneous. I mean, I'd been on your show. There was a while I was coming on about once a month, and we were having these wild, long conversations and covering these subjects. The Monroe series, because I've been through all of. I've done all the tapes and did some of the exercises multiple times, and I won't say I got real good at it or anything, but it was
that's cool.
Freaking cool.
Toot your own horn, man. If you did it, you did it.
Yeah, then I started having those dreams, and one of them was like I walked up on you, and I'm like looking at Joe, and he's in this sort of almost like a shack. It's way out in the boonies, and I'm looking in the window, and I'm like looking through a screen door, and you're laying down on a couch, and you're looking at something.
Yeah.
And so yeah, you were probably at that moment sleeping, on that couch and having some crazy ass dream. Somebody's at my door. Who the hell? Who's bothering me way out here in the boonies? And yeah, at that time or sometime around then, you were living in an environment that was just like what I dreamed.
Man,
like, wow, that was pretty confirming for me that, and I wasn't trying. It was just one of those things because I don't think you'd ever appeared in my dreams before. So
no.
I woke up out of that dream and I went, holy shit, I visited Joe Roop. I wonder, was I really there? Because we'd been talking about that a lot. You were having a lot of dreams that were on that border of out of body, lucid, which after we talked to Ian Wilson on your show, we found out that that's all sort of spectrums of an experience. Lucid dreaming can lead to out of body experience, that you can reach through a dream and actually affect things in physical reality. Ian learned how to induce lucid dreaming. Like he could go into a lucid dreaming state from fully awake to lucid dreaming in about a minute.
Yeah, he
could actually keep his eyes open and start reaching through the dream layer to actually punch into physical reality. And he had it on tape or on video on his phone where you could see how he was actually reaching. He's like, I'm lucid dreaming right now, but I got my eyes open and I can reach through the lucid and actually start affecting things. And you could see the carpet moving.
What the hell?
My fingers along the carpet. And
didn't I used to
carpet moving?
Didn't I used to call him and like he would get on the show, but he would always go out in the woods and talk to me. Is that the same Ian Wilson that I'm thinking of?
Yep, lived way up in Canada.
Yeah, you could hear like like not wolves, but coyotes around him at night on the show, and I'm like, "What are you doing?" He's like, "I'm out in the woods, man. I got to
go way out there." Yeah. Like, how are you getting a cell phone signal? Yeah, man. I think Ian might have punched through, man, because he disappeared off the grid. And,
I don't know where he went.
Dude, he probably got sucked into one of those psionic programs they've been talking about through Jake Barber and all that. The UFO disclosure, the people who've come forward who say that there have been there are these legacy programs going on where they've had people they've identified as able to interface with these things that we call UFOs, orbs and things like that, that they can call them down out of the sky. And that they've actually done crash retrievals on some of these things. And Jake was the leader of the team that worked for one of these defense contractors. He'd been a Air Force special operations guy who moved into the private sector, sort of in that gray zone between military and military industrial complex, Boeing or Northrop Grumman or someone like that he worked for. And he said that he's actually worked with the psionic assets. That's what they call them. These are people who are psychic and can do these things. They can telepathically interface with the craft and sometimes with the entities that are on the craft.
It can't is it Ryan or Chris Bledsoe? Can't they do that too?
Yeah, Chris has had a lot of spontaneous things happen, and now he's getting to the point where he's actually bringing these things into our reality, which, he's had experiences of the Divine Mother, the bowl of Diana from Greek mythology. The Diana and the bowl showed up, kind of punched through a gateway, a portal that opened up on his farm out in North Carolina. He's living way out in the sticks, and he's been having these wild experiences. Chris is one of those people who I think is genuinely having these experiences. And there's a lot more people. This seems to be a snowball effect, Joe, and I'm going to give you a heads up on this. The same way that Ian Wilson gave you a heads up, because we came on when COVID was just starting to hit.
Oh yeah, he was
a lot bigger
on it. Yeah,
he knew. Yeah,
he did know. Man, if I could go, bro. You know what?
On YouTube somewhere. That video has got to be out there somewhere.
If I could go back,
and it's timestamped.
Like Ian Wilson had a
that
whole
was December of 2019.
Dude, he had a whole document of like before any Christmas. Brother. It's so glad you brought that up. He did predict this thing to be exactly what it was, man. And he had documents and messages from people. Like I've got to go back and find that thing, man. Like,
yeah,
he warned everybody on this show
company.
And the Discord server, everybody. He's like, dude, this is not what you think it is. And he had he sent me a document. I bet I still have it somewhere. I don't want to get in tube trouble, but whatever, man. It was it was legit.
He doesn't answer. He hasn't showed up at Reddit. He hasn't answered emails. Nobody can figure out what happened to Ian. The last time I heard, he was going to Monroe Institute, and he had started making demonstrations of what he could do and somebody found out about Ian and pulled him into some, I wouldn't be surprised if he got pulled into some super black budget, psionic asset program, because dude was the real deal, man.
That guy was something else.
Yeah, he was on your show when he said that, and I was a guest on the show too that night. And I'm
going to go back through and try to find it.
It's just a little virus. It's nothing. And there's Ian saying, no, this is going to be a lot more.
He told me, because back then he told me he was thinking about actually splitting, like leaving and going off grid for good. He said that to me.
Yeah, that could be why he's been out of touch. He could have just gone way up north somewhere. He already lived in Vancouver, not in, but in that province. And he might have just gone way up north somewhere where there's just him and the coyotes and the wolves, and living way off grid somewhere and doing his wild lucid dreaming stuff. He
turning video games into lucid realities. Yeah.
He was programming his dreams so that he could play out scenes from Star Wars. His description of the cantina scene was one of the craziest things I have ever heard. He loaded up a lucid dream. He learned how this technique that basically, as you're going to sleep, that you just keep pulling in imagery from media, whether it's a video game, it was a movie, whatever, and he would just pull in the imagery and start working with it as if he's in it. He starts using his imagination like he's an author, and he's creating the scene But when the dreaming starts, it's now acting autonomously. He doesn't have to imagine anything anymore. He's now immersed into it as a dream, and he would play out these scenarios where he gets to be like Han Solo in the cantina, and the Sith Lord comes walking in, and they have this, lightsaber battle and stuff like that. Like, but then he would do something unexpected, like he would like pull in the Sith Lord and like hug him and open his heart chakra and like, fill him full of love, and it just mind blowing stuff, the way he could, think his way through a scenario like that as like an interactive virtual simulation. Very, of course, real. You're experiencing it because it's a dream. And yeah, come on, Ian, you're feeling me, man. You just happened to tune in on YouTube tonight, and you saw Joe Roop. And
come back.
Now you're here, man, and you're hearing this. So Jason JM has been trying to reach you. So email me, dude. It'd be good to hear from you. I've been wondering what happened to you.
We'll make it a dual mission. We'll try to find him, man, or at least see if we can reach out to him.
Send out the telepathic vibes, man. It's real, dude. It's real. In my book, The Science of the Paranormal, hey, it might even be available for pre-order. So Skyhorse Publishing, J.M. DeBoard, Science of the Paranormal. We're almost there to the finish line to publish it. And I've went through all the history of the research into things like telepathy, and it's real. It's there.
Oh yeah.
It's real.
So like, I don't know if you heard the telepathy tapes, but that's a new. Have you heard
to all of the episodes? Yep, I listened to the first season.
That's awesome.
There's the autistic kids, nonverbal autistic kids, who are communicating with their caretakers through means that are not physical. I mean, I've looked at some of the things, the ideomotor. There are real concerns about taking this as proven scientific research. It's not proven through what the telepathy tapes did. It was proven by Diane Hennessy Powell, the John Hopkins trained what is she, a cognitive psychologist? No, she's a doctor. She's a neuro something or another. Very high level person, high level researcher, and her research has shown it because she was able to control for the conditions. They found some of these kids who didn't have to be touched as they were using their little spelling board. And over again, they would be able to see things like 4-digit numbers that were only seen by their caretakers, produced by a random number generator, spit out by an iPad. You can see the kid sitting over there on one side of the room, and the mom is over here, and the kid would kind of look at his mom or even just sort of tune into her and then just go, boop, 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 those 4 numbers. Correct. Show another 4 numbers to mom. Kid spells out on his iPad. Same 4 numbers. Same 4 numbers. They did it 20 times in a row. Got all 4 numbers correct. And he didn't have to be touched to help him to move his hands. That one of the astounding things from that program that and from the research that Diane has put out, that just really just floored me, is that these some of these kids who are these severely autistic kids are not even aware that they are in a body. They are so disconnected from that's why you see them twitching and moving. They can't, they look funny, quote unquote. And I all due respect to these kids. This is the common perception. You look at them and you're like, you're not fully like in your body. You're jerky and mechanical, and you can't write.
And they're actually far more aware than you think. Way more aware. They are totally
there. Yeah. Like the people in coma that they're finding are actually conscious and they're actually there.
Right.
That's the same. And by the way, sleep spindles. When else you have sleep spindles? Is when you're falling asleep, and you'll see these little bursts in your mind of what looks like just like a I don't want to say a star, but it's sort of like just this twitch. You'll twitch and you'll see this little of behind your eyes. It's like a phosphorus thing going off. If you're measuring a person, if you're watching a person's brain at the time, that's when they're producing the sleep spindles. And you'll get like little hypnagogic jerks and stuff like that as it happens. But anyway, yeah, these kids on telepathy tapes, if anybody's interested in this subject, it's a great source. But I also went into the research. They've been studying telepathy going back more than a century. a very serious research, high level people who've done it, and it's
Isn't
continued
it crazy
all
though
through
that
these
this
decades.
stuff?
And,
I mean, we should be at least a little happy that this stuff is. I mean, seeing Tom Campbell on Joe Rogan, and listen, Tom Campbell talking about consciousness and conscious exploration, and that was one of the only podcasts that, I've had Tom on the show a few times, but that Joe Rogan just kind of set, like, he didn't really even, it wasn't even a conversation. I mean, it's like Joe Rogan was mouth breathing the whole time Tom was explaining this stuff to him, and
Tom can go on and on, man. He's a fountain.
I think it's good that it's coming to that front. So maybe this stuff will start getting a little bit more backing. So maybe the people that have always been there, like Diana and stuff, will start to get something for all this, and it's not about getting things for it, but it, like I'm not one of those people, Jam, that I'm like, well, we're a special group of people and, it sets us apart from everybody. No, man, like I want the world to see this stuff, to experience this stuff,
Yeah, we're just a vanguard, dude. It's a group of souls that have moved into this reality and brought with us some of what we knew on the other side, which everyone knows. It's just we have more memory of it. A lot of people don't remember their dreams. And one of the big reasons why is because their dreams are producing things that make them uncomfortable. They sort of block it out. They tune it out. But it's the same way that I'm finding with some of this, what we call psychic and paranormal stuff, that it's always been there. The history books, this stuff goes back, there's writings in the ancient Greek and Roman and, Egyptian and stuff where these people had paranormal encounters and people who demonstrated abilities that were just astounding. Over in India, they cultivate it in the practice of yoga and the Yoga Sutras. It's a handbook for teaching how to have these experiences yourself. And here was something I ran across that that would give us all pause. When you look at these UFO programs and the keeping this stuff so secret and the extent that it's been done to keep this secret, and it's now coming out. There's no doubt about it. It's real. Hell, it was confirmed by the Pentagon. We have this stuff on tape. We've engaged with it with our military and intelligence assets. We know it's there. Well, the history of this stuff goes back thousands of years. It's something that's been engaging with humanity. Carl Jung, let's bring him again. He wrote a book, UFOs, Signs from the Sky, or something like that. He said that these are psychic phenomena, that we are projecting this stuff out from our own psyche because we've repressed it. It's some normal aspect of ourselves that got just violently suppressed, which did happen during the Dark Ages. They went after people who demonstrated these abilities and they fucking burned them alive. I mean, and this went deep underground in the human psyche, and now it's coming forward again. And we've been through this cycle of it popping up and then getting suppressed down and popping up and getting suppressed down. Well, they're laying the groundwork for suppressing it again. And the reason why is because the more we engage with the phenomenon, the more it engages with us.
Right.
They found this at Skinwalker Ranch and places like that, where the people who were studying the phenomenon brought it home with them. The people who can engage with these UFOs telepathically and invite them to come to wherever these people are gathered. Apparently, it's been demonstrated to the tune of getting now major funding from private organizations to not just study it, but to be operational in that space. But what somebody named Ingo Swann, their famous remote viewer, and I'm pretty sure that I read this in his book Penetration, but please don't quote me on that. I know I ran across this though. He said from his rubbing elbows with these legacy programs that he was told that the reason for all the secrecy is because the more that people engage with this, the more it opens a door into our reality from theirs, the more awareness we have of it. So it's why you're never going to have a president stand up and say, yeah, I've seen all the intelligence and this shit's real. Yeah.
Yeah, they never will say it, right? No matter how much they're pressed about it. Yeah.
Because then millions of people, right now it's happening to, let's just say thousands of people every night around the world are having these experiences. People like Chris, the psionic assets, Stephen Greer, a lot of his people, they're having these experiences. And the more that people become aware of it, the more it opens up the door to it. So if you had a president who said, all of a sudden the reality of this is in front of everyone's face, the reason why it will never happen is because it would go from thousands of people to millions, to the tens of millions, to billions. It'll roll exponentially, and people will be out in their freaking front yards calling these UFOs down.
That'd be crazy.
What the people who've part of the legacy programs, who've been hiding, suppressing this for at least the last 75 years since Roswell and the national security response that came to it in 1947, creation of the CIA and all that, National Security Agency, they created these programs to get people to be able to get a handle on it because they recognized that it was a real thing, but they couldn't acknowledge it. They had to have it done all in secret. And the people who were doing this in secret, when they found out that engaging with the phenomena creates more of it, they said, we have to absolutely keep this under wraps, because otherwise we're inviting into our reality a force from the other reality that we don't know what it is, and we don't know what their intentions are.
I think that's what it is. Do you think that's what it is? That's why, that's the reason? Like a lot of people think it's a military thing, but it could be.
That is a very salient. Yes, the military. They found out that they could do these things. They had the physics for it. They've had the physics for it since the 1950s. Actually, you can trace it back to the 1920s, where the physics of this was actually talked about in journals, and the engineers, the physicists, all these people got involved, and then it went away. One of the most astounding discoveries, and it all went away. And it's because they wanted to basically they're trying to turn it into a weapon. It's the same crowd who wants us to have the biggest stick so everybody else has to bow at our feet. They want to keep this thing secret long enough so that they can develop the military side of it, the weaponization of it. The other side of it came from what I read from Ingo about how he found out from people deep in these legacy programs, because he was recruited, and he was recruited to go into one of them. And he said that he was a little too much of a loose cannon for them, for them to, to accept him into the program. He was too much of a wild card. But he said that's the reason for it. And I do believe that's true, at least in part.
This stuff, though, still sounds completely loony, though. But that doesn't mean it's not real.
It does. Well, it gets even, if you watch the Jake Barber interviews, it gets even crazier, dude, because what they've been finding out, and Chris Bledsoe says the same thing. He says that the craft are coming from the place that we call the afterlife. And it's people who have figured out on the other side, in some kind of spiritual form, how to create some kind of an energetic field around them that allows them to punch through into our reality. It's actually the other side of the veil.
It's a Merkaba,
that
man.
Leads back to my podcast. We're channeling people from the other side who are trying to give us answers to the biggest problems we face as a planet and as a species. They are very directly trying to communicate with us. And so, yeah, man, we're on the precipice of something.
Well,
I just hope it doesn't become like X-Men and the mutants, where they just, they find people who are good at this stuff, naturally gifted at it, or have developed it, and those become the mutants, the people who are squeezed out of normal society because people are afraid of them.
They got Ian, man.
Dude, if you're talking to the entities and they're coming down, or there's any possibility of it, how are people going to react to that? I mean, we're still having book burnings, I mean, you can still smell the smoke and the wind of the bodies of the witches that they burned. I mean,
it's a thing. I went on a show called Low Value Mail, which was great, right? This guy was generally interested in my story, because, my focus is mainly on, I think our focus here is mainly on, conscious exploration. And there were people in the chat, man, that were saying I was a schizophrenic and all this stuff. And I'm like, wow, when you
Yeah.
when you experience the other side of, like, some of these people are so nested in the material that they've never had an exterior conscious experience outside of their own skin, unless they're taking a psychedelic or something, right? And still, yeah, it's uh, you know what I mean? Like, just crazy to see the paradigm shifts, just like the guy from the store who come running. Man, it's real. It's totally real. His eyes were, as big as freaking basketballs when he was telling me this stuff. It's because
Yeah.
when something happens to you, it changes your paradigm. You have to cross over, man. But you have to cross over to the dark side, right? But the thing is, man, is like, it's not, it's not accepted yet. People are just not. They don't want to accept it, I don't think. But it's okay.
Well, it challenges their paradigm. When they rub up against a paradigm that is different than theirs, then they're going to want to disprove it, write it off, and if they can't do that, then they'll attack it until it goes away. The paradigm is a way that you operate in this world. And if yours is challenged by a way of understanding the world in a very different way, it's contrary to your beliefs and your values and your expectations and your patterns, then yeah, this is how people have reacted historically to this kind of stuff, especially in Western society. Dean Radin showed that there's a gene that they've identified that they think is associated with psychic ability, a gene sequence, and they found that it's much less prevalent in people who grew up or whose lineage comes from Western Christian civilization. And you know why? Because Western Christian civilization tried to eradicate it by identifying the people who have these abilities, this way of perception, this different paradigm, and killing them.
Sounds like witch burnings to me. Same thing.
That's what he's referring to.
Yeah.
He says that when you get into other cultures, that they find a higher prevalence of this gene sequence, and that when they've identified it, they think that the hypothesis is that it's because in Western civilization we stamped it out. There's something about us that just will not allow us to accept that there's a greater reality than the one that is driving the machine of commerce. It's given us wealth and power, greatest, accumulation of it in the history of the world. Our materialist way of knowing and operating in the world has made us extremely wealthy and powerful. So it means that people have a vested interest in maintaining that system, even if they're not the people who are really benefiting from it. It's often the people on the fringes of it who are the ones who can be whipped up into a fury, and to try to stamp this stuff out. Look at Joe. Just look at the way that people were able to get shut up about UFOs for decades simply by creating a snicker effect. By, oh, you won't be socially acceptable if you sit at the dinner table and talk about UFOs. I realize it's not that way everywhere, but in mainstream society, that's the way it is. You just don't talk about these things. All the military personnel who had these engagements, this stuff's been going back a long time, the military reports of engagement with these things. And what would they be told? It didn't happen. Never talk about it again.
Yeah.
Go away. To the airmen and the military, the different people who were having these encounters, and very vivid, multiple witnesses. We only know of a fraction of it, like, say, Rendlesham Forest, because there were people who were brave enough to come forward to say, this is what we experienced. And one of them did it, and then the next one, and the next one, and the next one. Next thing you know, you got the whole squad that was out there that saw this thing, and they're all telling the same story, and they're not getting anything out of it. They're not selling books. Hell, getting that kind of attention is not something that you want. And honestly, for anybody who's listening to this who might be like, oh, yeah, I would love to summon a UFO or have an encounter with the paranormal. No, you don't. No,
yeah, for the most part.
You don't want to.
Yeah.
If you want to operate in this reality, and you don't want to have an extra challenge to operating in this reality, then you don't want to have those experiences.
Right.
You got to be in a place where you're ready for it. It's the same with a spiritual awakening. It can take you away from, the things that are where your priorities are. mean, it can be really hard to show up at work the next day. Oh, I'm going to put in my 8 hours doing something I fucking hate.
Yeah, it's
Even if you
really
like
it's,
yourself.
it's hard to
still,
be.
you
It's
know?
hard to do that. Be in relationships that don't work. It's hard to be because you realize that the authentic person that you are has been there all along. That you've been doing it a disservice, and big time.
And and screaming for you to do something instead of scroll through your social feed and get those little nail clippings in your mouth. The video of the guy who had the dream about endlessly scrolling, and symbolized as pulling fingernails out of his mouth. That's an existence you can get yourself caught into. I don't know, man. It's a lot more comfortable. It's kind of like Cypher saying he'd rather have the steak,
Right. Ignorance is bliss, right?
Flipping a Matrix reference, right?
What a night, man. I've got to end this, but what a night, man. I can't wait to talk to you again, brother.
I'll look for your email. Yeah, man.
Yeah, I'll be in touch.
That's great.
Thanks for coming back. I mean, thanks just for showing up. It was cool. It really was. Massive synchronicity. Made my night, man.
Thanks for giving the platform, dude. I love talking about these things, and I'm just have one of these odd combinations of knowledge of all this different stuff. And God, I don't find many audiences that can keep up with me. But dude, you're right there. Yeah. You're right there with me, and I love it. And I hope it's been good listening for your people.
Absolutely, man. I'll definitely be in touch.
It keeps you out there. So, yeah, looking forward to it. All right, folks. Good night from Tucson, Arizona. Thank you for listening.
Yeah, brother.
Take care, Jeff.
We'll be in touch, bro.
All right.
Bye-bye. Wow, that was crazy, guys. JM DeBoer just showed up out of nowhere. While I was talking about that crazy synchronicity, the crazy dream, pulled the sun card. I don't know. Sometimes you have the nostalgic night as a void walker. Speaking of which, sweet dreams, everybody. That night.